what that means. How do we change this together? Because while we have a plan and while we have an agenda to pass a Green New Deal, to pass Medicare for all, to make public colleges tuition free to any and all who seek to have an education in America. The thing is that these policies are not self-enacting. The only way that we achieve and become an advanced society is not through a technocratic policy proposal, but through a political revolution of working people in the United States. So tonight, and this campaign, and everything that we're here to talk about tonight is actually not about Bernie, and it's not about me. We're here to talk about you. That's what this is about. That's what a political revolution is about. It's about being seen and seeing each other. And the way that we create this movement, because, I see a lot of the coverage sometimes of our political campaign, of this presidential race. This is not something that we watch. We don't watch the polls. We change the polls. Whether you're running for city council, whether you're running for your PTA, whether you're running for president, this is not about something that we allow to happen to us. We don't let this race happen to us. We don't watch the presidential race. This is not a movie. This is a movement. So here's the deal. And what it also, and so the deal is, and here's the deal. The deal, I've got so much going on in my mind because I'm just talking to you all this evening. I was trying to prepare some remarks on the plane. I was I'm just going to talk to them, okay? And, and so here's the deal, is that we have to stitch ourselves together. We have to connect ourselves to one another. I came here today from the Bronx. And the thing is that our destinies are tied. And there's so many folks that want to say, what do Iowans believe? What do New Yorkers believe? What do Texans believe? All of us need health care. That's what all of us need. All of us need college. All of us need to save this planet. But the deal is that Iowa, you're the first in the nation, baby. You need to set the tone. And so you need to understand that when you walk in on caucus night, you're not just going in and walking in for yourself.
Help.
You're not walking in just
Help.
for your family.
Help.
Just for your neighborhood. I'm asking you to bring other folks with you.
No.
That's what I'm asking you to do.
I'm Googling. How far away is Council Bluffs?
In the literal sense, but
Somebody
I also
might need to come save me.
Because in order for this to work, I need to go back home to the Bronx and tell my community in the Bronx, we need to fight for Iowa.
Thank God. Thank God. It's 145 miles away.
Is to walk into that caucus and say, you all, I'm going to fight for the Bronx.
No. She's right next door to Omaha, Nebraska.
I want something better than unity. I want solidarity.
We must save Charles. Charles is in Omaha.
Unity means
breath of fresh air is in danger.
We're in this room together. I guess we're in this together.
I need to call him.
Right?
I need to call him.
But solidarity means I fight for you and you fight for me. That's what solidarity means.
Oh.
So
she's right next to Omaha, guys.
Because when Senator Sanders uses the term, when he walks up to this podium and when he says brothers and sisters, that is a choice.
Oh, boy.
That is deliberate. And that is what this means. It means we are in this movement
She's
together.
across the border from
And so
Charles
what
right
it
now.
means
This is
that
scary,
each and
guys.
every one of us needs to
500
get
people are
bigger
watching this on
in
Twitch.
order for
This is
this to
Twitch.
succeed.
This is
Every
Twitch.
single one of us has to grow.
500 people are watching this on Twitch. Do you know how many people watch the president?
Because I want to learn. Because I want to learn.
Like 4,000 people watch the president on Twitch.
That and stitch it together with the Bronx and stitch it together with Baltimore.
What are those people nuzzling for over there?
Rural upstate New York, and stitch it together with our black brothers and sisters in the South, and stitch it together. And stitch it together
Blue-haired
with our
nuzzlers.
neighbors at the border, and stitch it together with
nuzzle.
queer brothers and sisters fighting for recognition, and stitch it together with the poor who are trying to make
I agree.
a living.
Cold as ice.
Stitch it together with people trying to afford childcare. We need to stitch this movement together, bit by bit, stitch by stitch, and that is how we are going to win. That's how we're going to win, not just in this presidential cycle. That's not how we're going to win a Bernie Sanders presidency, although it's not only how we're going to win a Bernie Sanders
You're not going to win nothing.
But that's how we're going to win our future back. That's how we're going to win our country back.
You can't have something that hasn't happened yet. You can't get something in the future. If it doesn't exist, you can't have it. It doesn't even make any sense.
We're not going to get there with Medicare for some.
Doesn't even make any sense.
We're not going to get there.
All right, nobody wants to look at that. Nobody wants to hear all that.
We're not going to get there with a living wage.
I'm getting rid of it.
We are rooting this movement.
Stop. Go away. Go away. You. Nobody wants you. Shut up. Shut up. Sorry. Hey, what's up? I just saw that was happening, and I was like, 538 people. I was like,
there was like maybe 300 people in that room.
Oh, and there's more people watching on Twitch. But I mean, come on. Think about where it's next to Omaha, Nebraska. Omaha, Nebraska has like 2,000 residents.
Donald Trump
just
would
saying.
have 1,000 people in that room.
Oh, guaranteed.
Minimum.
Guaranteed. Even though it is a liberal, it
doesn't matter.
I know.
Yeah, it's shit. Okay, so my comment on the thing was she's a sucking preacher. She's trying to be a preacher and she's terrible at it.
Oh, I know.
She sounds like Howard Dean without the charisma.
That's because she doesn't have she don't have any experience. Let me do this. She doesn't have it. No. Hold on just a second. I'm on the wrong.
Do what?
I'm just on the wrong thing here. You can keep on talking. I'm sorry.
You're good, man. No, Howard Dean was the one that was at the Iowa caucuses. What was it, 2008? And he goes, "We're gonna go take back the White House." Yeah! And his whole political career was over with one. Yeah.
Oh wow.
It was hilarious. Anyway. Oh, so
I heard that the Cheeto O'Borky or whatever that guy, he dropped out or something.
Yep, Beta dropped out. You know who's happy about Beta dropping out? Every Democrat politician.
Well, the thing is, I told my wife he was literally, sorry, over the volume. I told my wife that dude, Mr. Cheeto himself, he was literally just a tool, a puppet to adjust the Overton window.
Yep.
That's all he was. That's all he was.
The problem for the Democrats with him, as far as the ones actually running, was they were having to defend his positions.
I'm laughing at your comment that you said. It was just kind of funny.
Sorry.
The backbone of our democracy.
Oh, God, you saw that, right?
That's hilarious. Oh, what, the people nuzzling?
No, Elizabeth Warren. Okay, Elizabeth Warren tweeted out that black, trans, and all these other cis, non-normative are the backbone of our democracy. That's what Elizabeth Warren tweeted out.
Yeah, the non-normative are the norm. That's
what? They're the backbone. Yeah, they're the ones we depend on.
Isn't there a movie that was made about that called Broken Backbone Mountain?
I wish I knew how to quit you.
I don't know. I never watched that movie.
Listen,
I never
I
watched it.
never watched the movie. That is the one thing I quote from it because that's the one. It was. He turned it into a GIF. So I wish I knew how to quit you. Some big cowboy to another cowboy, and it makes me laugh. Oh, but I never watched the movie. Anyway,
Um,
I am incredibly prejudiced when it comes to two dudes kissing.
yeah.
I can't take it.
All right. So, yeah, I hear you. I mean, I watched Downton Abbey though, and I watched the entire thing, even though that happened on like episode 1 or 2.
Yeah, I never
Um,
watched that. I don't know.
it only happened once or twice in the entire 6 seasons. Um, and it's got. I mean, there's subversion and everything. I still think that Downton Abbey was I don't know. It was it was good storytelling at the very least, if I have to give it any credit at all. But anyway, I have a weird little thing that I um, actually I don't think that'd be good. I had this situation. I can't quote any of that stuff because I could probably get myself in trouble or something. But there was this dude. I'll just keep it all vague because I'm anonymous ish, on YouTube. Nobody knows what company I work for and all that. Um, there was a dude that threatened our company today because he had this transaction that he attempted to process. He tried to buy something, but his card was declined. Well, unusually, it showed up as a pending transaction on his bank account, and then he tried to accuse us of defrauding him, even though we gave him clear evidence that his transaction was declined and that we weren't holding any of his funds, so on and so on. Um, but it just was the reason I'm sharing this at all um, was there was this difficulty that I experienced. I see what you got going on there. Um, Carl would be proud, and so would Shama Lama.
The Lord's chicken. I
Um,
hear you.
but anyway, I guess what kind of struck me was just how quickly someone's threat turned the fire on inside of me, and it was an empty. I mean, not an empty threat. It was a threat that couldn't possibly result in any. It'd be like me saying that I was going to sue you for stealing that Chick-fil-A from me, and
Right.
you'd be like, so first of all, I have a receipt, and I can prove that I bought it, because I can link the receipt to my bank account,
Yeah.
and I also have, like just the
Fluff
most
your mouth with ice
preposterous
cream.
type of accusation or like threat and accusation. And anyway, but still, I, I'm still I'm a little hyped up as a result of somebody threatening the company and myself because he was acting like it was all my fault. Um, I do this little thing where I send a little email to somebody when they abandon a shopping cart. And anyway, he tried to use that as evidence that I definitely defrauded him because I emailed him, "Hey, please check out our website. It looks like you forgot to check out, or whatever." It was just the most retarded thing, and yeah, completely random and not related to anything else. I just wanted to get it off of my brain so I could focus on other stuff tonight. So, Nate might join us tonight. He says that he has possibly the greatest song of the 21st century. Possibly. I'm not saying that as a way to like hold him to it. I told him that that was completely up to him. And then it looks like Charles is alive, thank God, because again, Charles, Alexandria, the OG Bronx lady herself, and Bernie Sanders, which I think is associated with the Russian mob or uh, the the Bolsheviks or the Rothschilds. I forget who's. It's something like that. He was dancing the Russian dance with all these people, right? At some point. Well, anyway, that guy, dude, he's like 20 minutes away from you right now. It's kind of scary.
The good thing is, all the people you're worried about are outside the womb, and so they're probably safe. They're probably safe.
Huh? What? Who?
They've already been born, so they're not really interested in killing Charles, or they just like to kill people that haven't been born yet.
Oh,
Oh,
it's
yeah.
valid. Very valid.
Yeah. Oh.
So how you're listening to me on a laptop or something? Because I can kind of hear a little bit.
Oh, you're on my phone. Normally I put headphones in, which I can do. I have them in the other room. But
It's all good.
If there's an echo, let me know, because I know that's annoying to hear
Just
yourself twice.
itsy bit. Not too bad.
Once. I could turn you down a little bit too. That'll probably help.
Not too bad.
There it goes.
All right, so
I did my first stream in about 3 months.
oh, okay. I
forgot it had been so long.
I didn't get a notification or anything. I check my subscriptions like 5 times a day.
I did it last night.
Oh, that's probably why. Last night I was offline completely.
Gotcha. Plus, the title involved abortion, so.
Oh, they might have blacklisted it from the get-go.
Yep. So, I'm trying to figure out if I should be smarter about that or not. I don't know.
There are ways. We can talk in code. I'm gonna put you on hold for just a second. I mean, you're gonna be able to hear me, but the stream will not hear you for just a second.
All right.
Boom. What's up? Yep. Oh, sorry.
Clear the bell, but on the stream you're like muffled as anything.
Let me go grab my headphones real quick. I'm actually I don't know how long I could stream because I'm supposed to be installing brand new toilets at the church.
Oh boy. Yeehaw.
Sounds like a rather worthy endeavor.
Mm-hmm. Well, my daughter had her volleyball tournament, but they scheduled her game was like at 4:30. So, and they won in 3 straight games, so that was over crazy early. But she has at least one game in the morning, and then if they win that, the championship game is in the afternoon. So tomorrow, I have no idea if I'm going to have time to do this. So that's why I was trying to do it tonight. But anyway, yeah, let me plug these headphones in. It'll probably work better.
That was really weird. It almost sounded like you were on 2X for a second.
If I was on what?
It almost sounded like you were like somebody hit the 2X and you were on, I don't know.
Like somebody sped your voice up.
It was just weird for a second. Car dealerships and airbag recall. Lots of grabblers here.
Can I go into Ben Shapiro voice for a second?
And now,
Well, guys, the real problem is the white nationalism and the racists and the alt-right is coming after me, and they're playing about moon conspiracy theories.
so I was watching one of Nate's videos recently, and he was talking about Mike Maloney, and then so I didn't know what had happened with Mike Maloney, and then I saw that, and then I saw what Owen was talking about with that, and then also how that also related to this guy Nick Fuentes or whatever. And I looked that, and then I looked that guy up, and then I hear about him as I'm listening to Adam Green on No More News, and I was like, man, there's so much stuff,
Just stay out of it.
and and I was just like, some people have issues,
Yeah.
and he'd definitely be on the list of people with issues. But
Vincent James talked about Ben Shapiro. His video was fairly good, and I think it was titled "Ben Shapiro Destroys Ben Shapiro." And it was he played a
I was beginning to think it actually was Shapiro with a U. I was starting to think that's actually. But anyway, go ahead.
No, so he played a old clip of Ben, and then the speech that he just gave last night, and he literally refutes like half the points that he made.
Oh, that's nice. That's good.
Yeah, it's like, nothing like being a complete hypocrite. He tried to, because last night he tried to make the case that he was mainly talking about Hispanics, right? And he had said before that Hispanics on average vote as a block, right? Like I think like 70% vote Democrat.
For sure.
And so he made the point years ago that and they're not likely to change from that. And even the ones he was even started considering culture. He's like, even if you consider culture, the ones that are professing to be Catholic still vote Democrat majority. The only group that doesn't are the Cubans, but he doesn't say that. See, that's the thing. So Shapiro tried to reverse that last night and say, people claim that, Hispanics vote Democrat and we're going to have no hope if we allow the Hispanic immigration to continue on the rate that we're currently in. He said, but that's not true because 80% of the Hispanics in Florida support, who's our governor? DeSantis, right?
Okay.
But just be rational for a second. And this is the thing, Shapiro knows this, so he's completely lying. Who are the Hispanics that are in Florida?
I mean, southern Florida are definitely Cubans, but that's not all of Florida.
Not all of Florida, but the vast majority of Hispanics in Florida are Cuban. There's far more Cubans. Even if you get further on, there's Puerto Ricans and Cubans. And Puerto Ricans and Cubans are way more devout in their Catholicism, and they're way more right. Cubans hate socialism. It is hard to find.
I wonder why.
Yeah, it is hard to find a Cuban.
We'll think about that one. It'll hit you, or if we think about it for a little while, we'll probably understand why.
Keep thinking about it, Chuck. You'll figure it out.
It just doesn't make any sense. I don't understand why they would just hate socialism so much.
I mean,
after all that free healthcare they've been getting, and
I mean, they are living examples of why it's a great system. Like,
yeah,
I don't understand.
I mean, look at their streets filled with classic cars. Do we have classic cars like that in America?
Exactly.
No. I mean,
and
hashtag winning.
They know how to fix. Here's the coolest part about their cars. They know how to fix their 1956 Chevy with a piece of tinfoil, a toothpick, and a GI Joe.
You give
literally.
And they probably have about 7 parts less on their '69 Ford than than you do because they figured out how to make it run without all the extras.
Exactly.
Because they broke a long time ago and they didn't have another
There's no more
69 to fix it.
Uh-oh. Ian Bearpig's trying to stir the pot over here. He said Cuba wasn't real socialism.
Well, real
Well,
socialism's
I mean,
never been
it was
tried.
closer to fascism, so he's not wrong. Like,
Real socialism's never been tried. So,
well, it was tried, and then Hitler took over.
well, prematurely ended there. You
Yeah,
never know how
well, I
successful
mean,
it would have been.
it was working great clear up until he declared himself emperor and then started lobbing people's heads off or gassing them or whatever he did.
If only it didn't always devolve into that.
Yeah, I mean, Russia worked really well socialist until the supreme dictator took over, and then everything went to crap. Like, the problem is that socialism in and of itself is a great system. The problem is that the person at the top of the system is the one that always causes the flaw. So if you could take the human element out of it, on paper it looks great, but the problem is that the person at the top always becomes corrupt. And it always will. There's no way for them not to.
That's the thing is people tell me all the time, oh, you just don't have enough faith in people. And I'm like, no, you have too much faith in people.
Well, it's kind of funny because
I'm one of them. I know.
It's kind of funny.
Evil above all things.
In order to be a huge advocate of socialism, you'd have to be philosophically strong on the deterministic side, as opposed to the free will side, because basically you couldn't possibly, if people's desire was for free will and you wanted to pursue your own thing, that's not functionally pragmatic in a socialistic environment.
It stifles any creativity.
So if you were more on the deterministic, that we basically serve a function as a human, and we don't need to pursue our own desires, and we can live fulfilling lives in a preformed formula, then that's what would make sense. But a lot of people just don't think it through like that.
In a paraphrase breakdown, if you're okay with being a cog in a machine, socialism is great.
Yeah, but and the way that I look at it is, heaven is probably a lot that way. But the fact of the matter is, when I talk about heaven with people, I'm always like, heaven's perfect, God is perfect, and even hypothetically, or for just illustration example, if there was a mundane thing in heaven, it'd still be the greatest thing you could ever imagine. But there's anyway.
The other way to look at that is something I was reading the other day, after we had our Kingdom of Heaven discussion. One of the other parables that I came across and read was that the one that where he talked about the talents, and I went back and actually reread it, and it's really interesting that he uses the governmental system, basically, of a prince who goes to a land and he comes back later on, and the ones that he's bestowed trust over his money, like, he gives them land grants to rule over based off of how they treated his money and the return that they got on it. So he's assimilating it to a responsibility aspect. Like, if you can be trusted with this little bit that I've given you here on earth, in the kingdom of heaven, you're going to have tenfold that responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
So it's interesting to me that in the kingdom of heaven, like, we're basically rulers of land grants in his parable, which leads me to believe that we're not going to be sitting on our hands singing 24/7. Like, we're going to have stuff to do in the kingdom of heaven. Like, it's not going to be
not because it's needed, but because it's what is good. That's kind of.
I think it is. I think it is for us. It's not needed for God. Like, God could have the whole system running forever without any of our intervention. But I think for us, we need it. We need to have something to do. We need to have a purpose, a goal, mentally, because Like our bodies are going to change, but it doesn't ever say that our minds are going to go away, or spirit or soul, what makes us who we are, is going to become any different. I mean, he created us as individuals for a reason. I have to believe that we'll retain our personalities and what made us in the kingdom of heaven.
Maybe. Yeah.
I mean, possibly. I mean, I would hate. I mean, I wouldn't say I would hate it, because like I won't have any say so over it one way or the other anyhow. But it would just seem interesting to me that God would create us different, unique, with personalities, and knit us together the way that he knit us together, if he's just going to make us a robot in the kingdom. Like that doesn't make any sense.
It doesn't. It doesn't. It's just, I guess the way that I've thought about it from a young age was not quite understanding what the implications of being stripped away of all of, because my assumption is that once we die, once we're in heaven, that we are, well, I mean, we're made new. It very explicitly says that we get new bodies and all that. But I also assume that our sinful desires and temptation and all that stuff is either completely gone or different. So the implications of what that does to us, I can't help but think that would
Well, I mean,
change us pretty
does.
significantly.
It does make sense if you think about it in the duality of man, because we have
Yeah,
a spirit that longs for doing what's right. Once we know God and once he's renewed our spirit, we have a spirit that longs to do what's right, but it's our body
the
that
flesh.
we're at
Yeah.
war with. The flesh is what wants to
So when our
sin.
flesh is done
So
away with is kind of what I'm referring to, basically.
yeah, so when
Yeah.
our flesh is dead, we won't have the desire to sin, because we won't have that temptation pulling us away. Is the best way that I can rationalize it in my mind,
All right.
because our body is what ties us to sin, from what I can rationalize from the word.
So,
Like, what are your thoughts on that, Jeremy? Like, you've been kind of quiet during this little.
I'm just thinking. So I have no biblical evidence for this, but I don't think there's any biblical evidence to the contrary that we would I would believe that we would retain who we are at our core, which is our soul, which is our sentience, to use a popular word. Um, and then what falls away are all those fleshly desires. So, if you can try and analyze yourself, which we're probably not fully capable of, but if you could try and analyze yourself and what about you is fleshly and what about you is the nature of God at work in your life, and just imagine, okay, so what things would fall away and what things would remain. I think I'm glad it's zoomed in on you, Devin, for that nice big yawn.
it must have zoomed in for you. It doesn't do that on the stream.
Oh, you're such an encourager, Devin, right as I'm talking big old yawn. But yeah, so if you could think about what things that you have in your life that are fleshly, and you're like, okay, so that desire would be gone and this aspect would be gone, and I'd probably
He directly talks about that, though. God does, about the things that you've done in your flesh will burn
right,
away. They're worthless. They don't mean
right,
anything. But anything that you've done in his name and through his power is what remains. It's what refines, and
right.
that is the things that will last. So I mean,
Yeah.
there's a direct correlation with the things that you've done in your flesh being worthless. Like,
Right.
so, like, I mean, that does make sense.
But when you think about it, because I agree, the actions that you do for sure, and the motivations behind that are going to burn away. They'll be separated, they'll be refined, right? But I'm assuming we were kind of talking about like personality wise and stuff like that,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm saying. Like the personality, aspects of your personality that are, for lack of a better term, evidence of Christ and the Holy Spirit at work in your life. You would assume those are just going to continue on, and everything
I
else
would
will
assume
follow.
that Adam
Yeah.
was before he sinned.
Right. Yeah. See, that's a
His
great example.
desires were to do what God had made him to do, to take care of the
Yeah.
earth, to till, to make food, to
Yeah.
to regulate everything and to enjoy it, like to enjoy God in his presence. Like that was his entire, like he had things to do. It's not like his entire job was just to walk the garden and praise God. Like, he had things that he had to do to tend it, to care for it. That was his job. But it wasn't hard until he sinned.
Labor. It wasn't labor.
So,
it was
I have
joyful.
to believe that Adam still had things to do. He still wanted companionship. He still wanted things in life. Like, we know that there's no like we know that there like marriage doesn't work the same way in the kingdom. Like, we know that because he breaks down like, oh, okay, well, the widow that got married to 7 people, who's she going to be married to in the kingdom? He's like, you're completely misunderstanding the point of this. Like, no one is married or given in marriage, which is interesting that we're married here, but we won't be married in another life. And that's maybe because there won't be the need for it. I don't have any idea how that will all work later.
Yeah, well, procreation probably isn't a thing. But and then on the other hand, all of the emotional connectedness. See, the body of Christ, the church, is supposed to be a single functioning organism, collective, playing different roles, unique, but also very much part of the same thing, completely interested in every aspect of its parts. And if all of heaven were to function that way, then I want to. This is inappropriate. No homo. I just, for some reason, I really wanted to say that in this room. But it would be like everybody was married. Everybody.
Well,
everybody.
But that's just the thing
but
like,
not
if you look at,
different system. But
well, it isn't really that different though, because if you look at the relationship between Adam and Eve before the fall, there's no indication that there was anything sexual intimate going on there at all. Like, he doesn't say that he knew his wife and she conceived until
the Bible is
after the
silent.
fall.
The Bible is silent on whether or not they had children before and after, or only after. Yeah.
Right.
It's
but what
unknown.
I'm saying is, like, she was made to be Adam's companion.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
That's
True.
what she was there for. She was there to be his companion. Because there wasn't anyone suitable for him to hang out with. Like,
they were technically going to live forever.
Right. So she was made to be a companion, to be like him. Like, that's what their relationship was.
Procreation is basically a symptom, or no, I'm sorry. Procreation is a necessary consequence of death.
Correct. You wouldn't have any need for more people.
Exactly.
If you weren't going to die.
Yeah.
Like, obviously God's plan was for there to be more people, but
so this actually segues in.
Let's not put it that way. That opens up a whole wormhole of possibilities.
This segues into a topic that I actually wanted to get on tonight.
But it is a fascinating look at how the kingdom of heaven could operate and how our relationships work together, and why you wouldn't need marriage or anyone to be given in marriage is because there is no need for procreation.
Yeah.
But everybody could have the functional relationship of the companionship that Adam and Eve had, of being able to communicate with each other and commune with each other and enjoy life with each other without the need or desire for procreation, because it's not necessary, because you're not making more people. So it's interesting to think of it that way, but it makes complete sense, because that's originally the way that God designed it to work. So, but it would be functioning as one mind and one body, because that's the relationship that God set Adam and Eve up with. It's just on a bigger scale.
Hive mind.
Well, it's not necessarily that you're sharing a mind. It's that everyone complements one another.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. You're all going to be like-minded for sure. So that's pretty awesome. It's also pretty awesome. What I try and tell, because a lot of teenagers, especially, have questions about heaven that are, a lot of them that you can't completely answer, and they're usually very juvenile by the nature that they are a juvenile.
Mm.
They ask questions like, what am I going to have my dirt bike in heaven, and am I going to be playing video games in heaven and things like that? Because
Well,
they're
people have
they're
asked this similar question. Is Scruffy going to be in heaven with me? That's probably the most age-old
sure, yeah,
question. Is Spot
and I
going to be in
and
heaven with
But
me?
you want to have some complex questions about heaven? Listen to a 5 or a 6-year-old ask questions about heaven. What is it? Where is it? How does it
yeah,
work? How like you're like, dude, like this is so philosophically deep. I don't even know how to answer your questions. Like,
uh,
but I mean, like if you think about it on that level, like that's where I started with, because I didn't want to feed them
no,
nonsense. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
and it was like, okay, well, what is heaven? And that's where I had to go start digging. And I'm like, well, my preconceived notions of heaven got blown out of the water real fast when I started looking, because I'm like, the heaven that I've been taught about as a child my entire life doesn't actually seem to exist. Like in the way that I thought about it, like when you die, you just go to heaven to be with God. Like that doesn't exist. Like the whole picture that's painted by scripture is completely different than that. And I'm just like, why are we teaching our kids this stuff? Like, I mean, I'm not going to claim to fully understand heaven or how it works, or
of course,
you know,
yeah,
I know that Christ referred to it as a kingdom, and it seems to eventually exist here on earth. Um,
exactly,
but that's after the recreation or the destruction and recreation of everything. It seems to exist here, with the New Jerusalem being the capital of the new kingdom where Christ resides, and we go to that to worship him. Uh, Basically, is how I can figure it out. And those of us that were faithful or martyred are going to be rulers over some portion of it, and there's going to actually be a hierarchy to how it rolls out, based off of how responsible you were with what he gave you charge of here
All
on
the way
earth.
down to your clothing.
Yeah. And interestingly enough, like there is a hierarchy, and like everybody's on the same playing field in heaven. No. No, they're
that's
not. Like there
that's
is a
the
hierarchy to it.
patriarchy. That's the patriarchy talking, Chuck.
I mean, let's be honest. The system that
No,
God set up was definitely a monarchy with him at the top.
oh,
Like,
absolutely, yeah. I've heard so much justification for a monarchy based on biblical reasons, and I'm like, listen, I said it in the chat. I said it in the chat a minute ago. Every single governmental or economic system would be successful if Christ was the head of it, if God was in charge of it. It wouldn't
well, yeah,
matter
'cause
the
that's how he set
system.
it up.
Right. The problem is men are in charge of it, so they all fail, regardless
Well,
of the
That's what
system.
Samuel alluded to when Israel asked for a king.
I'm sorry,
He
I
was like,
can't
Yeah,
laugh. I mean, I can't hear the words. The problem is without laughing
yeah, the
because
problem is.
when I hear the problem is, I just instantly in my head hear we destroyed the technology.
Hey
the
guys,
pro-
I gotta bow out for now, but it
The,
was a pleasure talking to you, and I gotta go help my wife now.
all right, man.
So,
The
all right,
yeah,
problem
man.
is we destroyed the technology, and it'd be a painful process to rebuild. You know, it's funny because somebody gave a really good metaphor. I'm sorry, you were probably finishing a sentence.
Well, I was just gonna say I'd love to go to the moon. Anyway, go ahead.
So somebody gave a really great metaphor for that thing, and I thought it was really really good. So go build build a frigate. Go build me a frigate from the 1732. You okay?
Yeah, I can hear you.
You look like you're about to tell a ghost story. It's pretty good.
Gather round.
Are you afraid of the dark? Um, so I need you to build me a a
Yes.
a big pirate ship from the year 1732.
Right.
And go ahead, go do it. Um, but they didn't give that example. They gave the example of
I could do it. But
You're breaking up.
Can you hear me or no?
No, your signal just went
Ah.
crazy. They didn't give that example though. They gave the example of uh, not being capable of building a Korean War era like 1940s airplane or name any obsolete vehicle basically and try to build that the way that
Right.
the way that it was done. You They don't make the parts anymore. For instance, my 1984 Saab, it was a 1984 Saab. They can't make any of them anymore because they don't manufacture the parts. They could make something like it. They could rebuild the body and make a replica that looks similar, but they couldn't actually part for part remake my 1984 Saab. And I say my dad, it's my dad's
Yeah.
again, but
But what they could do is make a better version on the same principles. And that's why that statement is so ridiculous. Is
well,
because, well, like technically we could, if you had a machine shop, right, and unlimited funding. Oh gee, what does NASA have? Anyway, unlimited funding.
yeah.
You could build that Saab identical. You could build it identical with unlimited funding and machine shop, and techs that know how to use the equipment. Same thing with a
If you
ship.
have the specs, though.
Well, this is what's so ridiculous. We literally have the quote unquote specs for frigates. Like we have the specs for things that were built,
Some of them, but there are
centuries
things
ago.
there are things that are older that we might not be able to recreate exactly the same. We can approximate, we can get close. And I get what you're saying. We can make
Yeah.
improved methods and stuff like that. But
And they only need to make one. They don't have to mass produce things. They just need to make one.
yeah. Yeah, I get that. So really the topic that I was hoping to get to tonight was numero 21 and numero 30. It's kind of a boring topic a little bit, Agenda 21 and Agenda 2030, but but
I'm not sure what those are. Sorry.
for real.
Agenda 20. If you refresh my memory.
Okay, so the United Nations has a summit in 1992 related to
Okay.
sustainable development is the key word for Agenda 21, sustainable development. So anytime you hear the word smart, smart meter, smart park, smart meter, or smart whatever, it's related to the sustainable development plans of Agenda 21. It's a couple hundred page um, document that they had this summit in Brazil, and by they it was multiple countries that came together, signed off on it, and I think 170 something countries since 92 have signed off on being a part of Agenda 21 specifically, which stands for the year 2021, to accomplish the goals of Agenda 21 by the year 2021. They they revamped it. I think it was in 16 or 18. It was within the past decade that they kind of revamped some of the goals and the timeline and changed it to 2030. Um, and it included new things in it as well. But it just kind of goes in regards to it's the real life Hunger Games in regards to zoning people, in regards to planned depopulation, all that kind of stuff. Does that ring a bell?
Yep. Yep. It does.
So that's what that is. But anyway, it kind of hit my mind today, and I was like, wait a second, my plan, being kind of out in the middle of nowhere, even if they closed off the borders, I'd be in place and stuck where I was. But I plan on being in a place where I'm able to provide kind of middle of nowhere-ish. And I don't know. I think that situating yourself in such a way that even if you're in the middle of a zone, as long as you can provide for yourself, it's really not a big deal. One of the biggest worries is that you won't be able to go from zone to zone, um, which I don't know. I guess that can be complicated, especially if you have family that gets zoned in one zone, and I don't know. It all seems pretty far fetched, except for the fact that most of what they're um, talking about is in writing. It's not speculative at all. It's actually spelled out pretty clearly. So anyway, it was just something that was on my mind. Thoughts?
Yeah. I mean, this one of the big things for me is nothing seems incredible or impossible anymore.
Yeah,
Especially when you start talking about the government.
yeah.
I was listening to, and I'm not trying to derail your topic at all, but I was listening
Oh,
to
please.
an older podcast from Apologia, and they were talking about um, the War of the Northern Aggression and the Civil War, but
Oh,
that's from the South. We call it the War of Northern Aggression.
I've
So,
heard that before. Actually, I was like, that sounds familiar. I'm
yeah,
a little, on
it's
the,
all right. I know. I have Spectrum Internet. So anyway,
nice.
the
All right,
but
go ahead.
but it's a prime example of how, like, if you had told me when I was younger that slavery was used as a prop in order for the states to lose their rights and the government to become centralized in Washington, that's ridiculous. I would have thought that was an insane proposition. However, hearing it now, I'm like, well, let's see. What does the government typically do? They create they either create a problem, excuse me, or
They make good
they
use of one.
they make use of one. Yep.
Yeah.
And so, and then the solution to every problem is what, according to the government?
Every problem is an opportunity.
Now, every problem in the world or in the country for sure, but globally can only be solved by more government.
Oh, yeah.
Like the solution is always, it's like I've never heard a politician with any weight. I mean, you get a few libertarian leaning
Well,
people that won't speak that way,
there's
but
some French people that spoke that way. They I'm not joking. They coined the phrase laissez-faire government, and that means hands off. Actually, it literally means let do or let it be. But that was the French, ironically, which we criticize so hardly, but they definitely had a non-interventionist mentality when it comes to government. And man, they got a lot of beef.
when you
Anyway,
start
go ahead.
looking back, when you start looking back historically and going, all right, so all these problems that were supposed or were created by the government, the solution was always more government. The solution was never, you know what? Here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna stay out of it. Fathers, you should be diligent in teaching your children better. No, that's never the solution. They go, all right, fathers, you're not necessary. We've got this. We'll handle it, and we'll teach your children better. Like, it's always more government is the solution, not less government. So when you think about it like that, nothing surprises you anymore. The idea that we might be sectioned off and
Yeah.
I mean,
All right.
yeah,
You mentioned Lincoln, the Civil War and stuff.
sure.
Once upon a time, I saw this video that said that we've been taught history all wrong. I don't know if you're familiar with this video, but it shows a picture of a black Abraham Lincoln. And are you familiar with where that's going?
I no. All I know is he's a vampire hunter. But anyway, go ahead.
No, I don't know anything. I mean, that was a movie or something, yeah.
Yeah.
But no, like supposedly, according to this little video or something or other, it was actually the other way around. And I'm sure it is probably like some kind of weird white supremacist, weird conspiracy theory, actually, a
That
conspiracy
white
theory.
people were slaves
That the white
and
people were the slaves, that we've been taught history all wrong, and that Abraham Lincoln actually was a black dude, and most of the presidents prior were as well, and that everything's been whitewashed and changed around. And I was like, something about that doesn't seem logically consistent.
yeah.
It doesn't seem to add up just right. And it's interesting when I hear any new idea, conspiracy theory or whatever, because that's how I think about it. It's like, how does this
Well,
add up? How does
let
this?
let me be the racist in the room.
Oh no, that's a
And
hilarious way to start a sentence. Go ahead.
right. Well, I mean, I'm already a racist, obviously, because I voted for a racist. So,
White
um, yeah,
man,
yeah,
Christian. Yes.
patriarchy, everything. So anyway, let's just rationally and logically look at the planet
Okay.
and see what countries most look like the United States and how we have developed as a nation. What countries are the most developed, and do they look like people with lighter skin or they look like people with darker skin? Because the reality is, if you look at, so yeah, India obviously is darker skinned, but it's not African, and they're developed, but they're only developed in certain areas, and
Is India highly developed in some areas?
like in where is it? Yeah, well, I mean, what the tallest building in the world's in India, correct? Yeah.
No, you're talking about the United Arab Emirates.
Where is it? I don't have the ability to look stuff up that you probably do right now,
Yeah, I'll
but
look it up.
I'm pretty sure the tallest building in the world. There's innovation in India that happens, but as a whole, that nation is not developed. China is very developed.
Tallest is the I thought it was like the Burj Khalifa or whatever, which I thought was in the UAE. Um, let's see. Yeah, the Burj Khalifa in Dubai, which Dubai is the
India.
UAE. Yeah. Just double checking. The UAE is next to Saudi Arabia, you know.
Yeah,
As far as I think Shanghai has Shanghai Towers number 2, the Abraj Al Bayat Towers, which sounds actually Indian. Let me look that one up. That's the number 3, Abraj Al Bayat. I don't know.
but so my point is, if you go to Africa, the only parts of Africa that are incredibly developed
Like Wakanda.
are the yeah are the areas that were colonized by England.
Okay, so there's nothing tall in India actually. Um, Let me see. I'm you just it's interesting because I'm curious if there's any um nicest city is how I'm going to search for that. India, nicest city in India.
Gotcha.
Um, 10 most beautiful video cities you should visit in India. Okay, that doesn't look beautiful. What? Varanasi. Uh, some. This is a pretty picture. That looks like a terrible Udaipur. No, that doesn't. Bangalore looks nice. It looks old world, but it does look nice compared to most of what I've seen, which makes sense. Delhi. They don't have everything they have is very artistic, culturally artistic. You know, they're not westernized. I mean, I'm not going to call something Um, it's just different. So it's hard to say, oh yeah, they're highly developed. I'm not going to say that they're not highly developed just because all their stuff looks like it was built 300 years ago. That there's, I mean, I get it. There's some beautiful stuff there. I like their architecture, but
Yeah.
I kind of that's interesting because on that line of logic, now you have me wondering what is the most primitive light skinned culture in the world?
Hmm.
Because it's
It'd have to be something
would it be
like northern.
Latvia?
It would
Like
have to be. Go ahead.
I'm thinking like what's that, Estonia or
Okay.
or Switzerland? I mean, I know the Swiss have their banks and their chocolate, but they don't have much else.
I bet it's Iceland.
No, man, Iceland's got massive tech, medical and tech.
Yeah.
Um, they're leading the world in some of those areas, and energy, like sustainable energy, tech, and all that good stuff, because they live on the most um, geologically rich energy source in the world, basically, with all their steam and whatever. I don't know, but I don't know, man. I'm thinking like Estonia, maybe. Oh, I mean, there's other countries that have been held back because of war, and but that I mean, that's the thing about those. There's two or three countries that are in between uh, Germany and Russia. We look up a map. It's been a while since geography class.
I know you're banned from Kiora and all, but I'm looking on Kiora right now.
Oh yeah, good old yeah, Kiora. I think about that from time to time. It's a little
That's stupid. This is stupid. Their answers are dumb.
um well,
Okay, Saami of northern Scandinavia actually still live in tribal villages.
of what company? Oh wow, country.
Scandinavia.
Well, that's a region, right? There's no country.
Northern, right. Northern Scandinavia. It's Sami. I'm gonna search it.
Are we talking about like Sweden or Norway or?
I don't know. I'm about to find out.
Well, that's what I'm talking about. Estonia. Estonia is the country right below Finland,
Culture horses.
and then Estonia and Latvia.
Sami has their own government, according to this. Sami people.
So I would think Belarus. You literally never hear about Belarus in anything ever, you know?
Yeah. Okay, so the Sami people are an indigenous Finno-Ugric people, because I know what that is, inhabiting Sapmi, which today encompasses large northern parts of Norway and Sweden, northern parts of Finland, and the Kola Peninsula. And
Belarus looks pretty developed, actually. I'm pretty surprised.
yeah, literally white tribes.
I mean, some people could make arguments that like the Aborigines would be a great example.
Oh, they're not white.
Some of them are pretty light skinned, but technically they're a completely different race according to old encyclopedias that used to categorize people in
boring everybody.
everybody. I mean, there's like
There's only
one
technically two people.
there's 1.1 people here because there's always one person on my stream, and by always one I mean when it's not zero, because it does hit zero, and that's why I mean there's always one, because there really is always one person that shows up, doesn't say anything, they think that they're a funny little boy or a funny little girl, and they just sit there and say nothing, and that's why I'm only gonna count them as point 0.1 of a person. So talk about the topic being racism tonight. Now I'm discrediting their value as a human down to point one because they never say anything, and they're laughing. They're sitting back in their quiet little dungeon, and they're just going, ha ha ha, I'm getting under. He's spiraling because I'm always here, and they talk like a valley girl,
Our
obviously.
mom's basement.
Um, oh my gosh, that's really weird that I see the comment on the stream, but I don't see the comment in the chat.
Who?
So Trippy,
Oh yeah, I see it.
well, it's not in my chat though. It's weird.
Well, okay.
I'm refreshing. Yeah, it's not
Yeah,
there. It's not in
yeah,
my
not here.
chat because I have a filter that blocks it, but
Oh.
but the app,
Did
but
you
the
use a naughty word?
but the app that puts the chat onto the stream isn't playing by the rules of the filter. I can now see, which I've wondered before. I've been like, wait, what in the world?
That's
Um,
funny.
and there you go.
Did Trippy use the naughty word?
Oh, he used the one that really riles people's feathers up. It starts with the letter after E. I won't even say the letter because I don't want to
Yeah,
offend anybody with the letter. The letter that happens
true.
after E.
Yeah,
The letter after E word.
fantastic.
That's a hilarious way. The the letter before G word. I'm sorry,
Man.
what did you just say?
And the house I grew up in, the G word used in vain was far worse than the letter before it word.
Yeah.
Even though we weren't allowed to say that one either. But anyway, so now what were we talking about? That's right, racism. No. I'm trying to remember what we were on a topic.
Agenda 21 and 2030. And you said anything could happen and all that.
Yeah, nothing surprises me anymore. Shoot. But no, we were talking about dang.
I'm gonna pretend to be an old guy now.
Dude, I am old. I have early onset dementia. It's ridiculous. And I feel bad if anybody actually has relatives with dementia because that's a miserable thing to go through. But
Yeah.
I
True.
man, my memory is terrible sometimes. All right, moving on. I'm not going to dwell on that forever.
Well, it's okay. I guess I didn't look at my invitation fell flat with.
Nate?
Yeah, it's all good. He told me to give him a warning, and I only gave him like a couple hours, but
Well, you told him last week that it was going to be on Friday.
yeah. Are you there?
Me?
Oh yeah, all this. I don't know. My thing clicked. It was weird. Yeah, yeah. I know. It's all good.
Yeah.
So I've been keeping. Go ahead.
No, you're good. Go ahead.
There was a thing that I was watching this week. Catholic Inquiry. It's like a courtroom type thing. It's an investigation on the Catholic Church, and I was watching day 8. They were live streaming this inquiry slash what do you call it? It wasn't an inquiry is the wrong word. Investigation, I guess, is the best word for it. And they were going hard on this cardinal dude, and just watching his responses in defense of himself and in defense of the Pope was surprisingly pathetic. Like the things that he was being accused of negligence and stuff like that in different cases of. So here's what's really sad. They're doing this investigation and they've numbered They've numbered the victims, and they're referring to each number. Do you feel like you were negligent in regards to case 159? Yes, I admit negligence in regards to 159, but also 158. No, I don't admit any fault in regards to case 158. Like, that's how they're talking about these victims. I believe that the church has done everything in its power to support and help in regards to case 158. Like, as if they're well aware of these, and I guess they somewhat are, but like they know who they're referring to, but it's numbers and not people. And I'm sure that part of that's for
That's
this.
for the protection of the victims, most
I know
likely.
in
Yeah.
in a lot of ways, but on the other hand, psychologically, the way
Yes.
that works out for the perpetrators, um, is really not healthy mentally.
Yep.
And the answers and defenses that the bishop, well, cardinal rather, because he was like a number 2 or number 3 guy. He's like he's I forget the whole structure, but he was a pretty high up dude. Whatever the case, the answers were very surprisingly underwhelming. And then one of the one of the things that they brought up is very interesting in regards to the First Amendment in America, because in the Catholic Church, um, they believe in the sanctity of confession, and they call it there's a special word for it, and I don't know if Ian is still here or not. He said he'll be back later, but it's the privacy of the information that's shared in confession has a name, and I forget what they call it, but it's like the lock and key, the uh, the eternal bottomless pit that they throw their knowledge of confession into. Like, they're never ever ever allowed to share what's been confessed. And people have tried to vote and argue, and apparently in certain countries in functioning Catholicism, there is such a thing as mandatory reporting. If a child has been harmed, they break the seal. That's what it's called, breaking the seal of confession.
Hmm.
It just came to me. That's what they call it, breaking the seal of confession. And there is this country, I forget which country it was. I feel like it was Spain or some Latin country. But whatever the case, there is a country that will break the seal of confession for the sake of mandatory reporting when it comes to children. And he was adamant that that could and should never be done for sake of religious propriety and all that. Um, but the way that he answered the questions related to that, because there was a question that had been asked of him regarding had anybody ever confessed to him if they had harmed a child or something like that. And he said, now have you mind that I'm not breaking the seal of confession by telling you this, but no one has ever told me that. And then he went on to say that he then went on to describe the psychological framework of a and stories that he had heard from others, supposedly, right, that the psychological state of a person who had harmed children, sexually molested them and stuff, um, being that they felt fully justified in their actions, um, and deserved a bit of pleasure, as in their own words, and that they would never confess their actions. And he was describing this like it basically it was his excuse as to why there was no need to break the seal of confession, because it doesn't even matter, because the perps, and he didn't use the word perps because
Right.
he didn't exactly sympathize with these psychopaths, but he spoke about it as if it was not just really nonchalantly, non-sympathetically. But anyway, he was like
That
the
would have
state
made
of
me
the.
physically ill to listen to.
Oh, I know. The state of the mind of these people is that they wouldn't confess because they don't think that they're doing anything wrong. Is basically what the argument that he was making.
Right.
And then the dude basically called BS. He pulled the BS card on him and he's like, well, what about this and what about this and what about this? And he's like, well, yes, maybe, but this. And he basically just held to his guns about the mindset. And he basically was like, nobody that's harming children is going to confess that because they think they're either. I think he was trying to provide a either or situation. They're either trying to protect themselves and they're not going to confess it, or um, they think that they're perfectly fine and they're right to do it, and therefore they won't confess it. And then it was interesting. I watched several hours of it, listened mostly, because it's part of what I do when I'm working. I seem to constantly have these jobs where I can occupy myself otherwise at the same time as fulfilling my tasks. But the other thing that was shared in this investigation was, oh man, I'm gonna draw a blank a little bit. Yeah, I had it and then I lost it. But it was
It's
definitely
contagious.
disturbing and sad. That I was saying the dude called BS on that and then went on to ask him some other stuff. Um, yeah. I don't know. Oh yeah. What is the how is the I was some lady that asked this question. How is the Catholic Church preparing in receiving new priests and how are they filtering and the dude was like these anybody that's seeking to become a priest goes through a 3-day psychological profiling and they're completely vetted and basically checked out to the highest and utmost perfect system. And it's just like, well, y'all's tests are obviously terrible because it couldn't possibly be that rampant. um, I mean, it could because there's also flaws in the structure itself, but um,
Well, there's flaws. There's a flaws in the amount of authority they give to a priest.
unless it's actually just this, unless it's more than what it meets the eye, unless it's more like prescribed behavior.
Well,
I mean, I know that's conspiratorial and speculative,
it
but
it is. And what I would say, I'm not going to tell you you're wrong, but I would say what seems more likely to me is they have set up a system for men to fail. They've given
that's the excuse.
well,
No
they've given
offense.
men they've given a man authority that is beyond what Scripture endows him, including the Pope. There's no authority on earth supposed to be like what the Pope's authority is. That's
Hmm.
crazy. Um, and then you then make it to where you have somebody who's responsible for having and I'm not using this sexually, but intimate relationships with hundreds of people. Okay, in that he's listening to their deepest secrets and all of their failings, and then he's also coordinating to meet their needs and pray for them, and right. And that guy cannot have a wife. That guy has no outlet
Yeah.
for his sexual urges or his intimacy needs, both physical and emotional. Like, that's crazy.
Yeah.
That's crazy to me.
probably even heavier on the emotional side. Because I don't know, again, I don't know much about how the Catholic structure is, but I don't know how much camaraderie and intimate camaraderie exists in the what in the level of a priest specifically.
Yeah,
I don't know how many like mano y mano, lunch dates and coffee dates, and I'm using those words in like a non-pejorative, non-humorous way. I'm
yeah,
how many of these priests have like close brothers at the very least that they can cry with, that they can whatever with, that's not, that's fulfilling the emotional needs at the very least. And I don't even know if they have that, let alone,
yep.
because I feel like you could live without one, but you can't live without both. Um, but
That's my take on it, and that's it's.
yeah,
I've heard it used as an excuse. I'm not saying it as an excuse because there is
yeah,
no excuse for violating another person. There's no excuse for that. So it's not an excuse, but it's logical that they would have a predisposition to being tempted in that way because they're set up for failure a little bit in that regard, in my opinion. That's the way I look at it. And I go, and I don't see the biblical justification for it either. That makes it very difficult for me.
of course,
I just, we just celebrated Reformation Day, and, I just sit here and go, there are so many issues in Catholicism that you can't defend with Scripture. It blows my mind. And I'm not even saying things that are a huge deal, but there's a lot of little things that occur, and you go, well, why do you do that? And it's only because church history. It's the only reason they do it is that's the way we've done it. And I'm just like, that's just not how I operate. I can't do things that way. When it comes to things of church and things of God, I've got to have I've got to have a biblical foundation for that thing. And then if church history backs it up, that's cool. But I'm not going to base things that we do just on church history. So, anyway. And I'm mainly like when you look at the structure and how things are, and there's a hierarchy and church governance and things like that. Like you have the example of how it's supposed to be. So I don't
yeah,
understand why you need
I hear
extra.
what you're saying. Um, and I try to stay at that same mindset. But how do you view church on Sunday in that regard?
Yeah, see, I struggle with that. I struggle with that a lot because I understand why we worship on Sunday. Um,
Are you saying that like you say that, and what instantly clicks in my mind is because it's pragmatic?
right.
That's what instantly hits my mind. That seems
Yeah,
really pathetic. It's,
right. It does. It does. I because well because of because how we have structured our calendar, the first
hmm
day of the week is Monday, even though the first day of the week is actually Sunday.
yeah.
In the Roman the or not the Roman the Western world, Monday is the first day of the week, right?
In practice, not in calendar.
Right. That's what I'm
Yeah.
getting at. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
In practice, so we worship on the seventh day based on our work week, right?
Yeah.
So, but yeah, and my only I struggle with it because I did a service call for a lady not that long ago, and she had those questions. She got my name from talking with my pastor,
It's so great
and
that people are asking those questions though.
oh yeah, well,
It really is reassuring that just you said lady and I'm thinking somebody above 50.
oh yeah, she was an elderly lady,
Yeah.
and well, like number one, we were talking, and I said Jesus, and she didn't correct me. She did not correct me, but I noticed in the conversation, I'm saying Jesus and she's saying Yeshua. And it was like, you know what I mean? I could tell it's very deliberate on her part.
Oh, interesting.
Yep, that she insisted on calling him Yeshua. And it's one of those things that I do find interesting because I believe Jesus is a horrible translation of the word Yeshua. So I
Sure. My
so I
my argument
get
is we speak English, but go ahead.
right, but that English word Jesus isn't a good word for Yeshua.
Neither is God. So
Neither is I agree.
whatever.
Yep, I
Like we speak
agree.
English. Yeah, you know.
Yep, I know. I gotcha. So I'm never offended when somebody like insists on saying Yeshua. I'm just like, oh, I'm just like you say. I find that interesting. I go, okay. Well, usually, what I find is, and it's not 100%, but if because I've run into a few people that are that way that insist on saying Yeshua, um, they're typically more legalistic people, and
Oh yeah,
um,
yeah.
and I'm not even saying that entirely as a negative because I, as someone who has to preach on occasion, I understand the fear of not wanting to get the things of God wrong, right? Like there should be a healthy respect and fear for things of God that you don't want to get them wrong. At and so typically you would err on the side of caution a lot of times. So that's why I get people being legalistic sometimes. But my issue is I get people being legalistic with their own lives. I don't get when they're legalistic with everyone else's. So, because we do
Yeah.
have freedom in Christ, clearly. But
Yeah.
anyway, so what she was asking me about that though. She's like, "Well, why do you guys worship on Sunday? Why don't you worship on Saturday, the Sabbath?" And I'm like, "That's a great question."
Yeah.
And really, the answer to that is one that I don't like, which is church history. It really is the answer.
Yeah.
Like
So
they,
the way that I've looked at some of it too is, let's say you're in a spaceship and you've been knocked out. You wake up, you have no instrumentation, you have no calendar, you have no iPhone, you have no Apple Watch, whatever. In fact, you have no real way of recording time. All you know is when you fall asleep and when you wake up, that was your first night. For you're in a spaceship. This is the little metaphor. If you count 6 of those and then observe a Sabbath on this spaceship without time, you're doing the best you can with what you've got. And that's kind of the way that I've looked at it. Doing the best you can with what you've got. Um, and I think a lot of things there. I think that there's a lot of objective laws of God that can't be. Um, they are or they aren't. For instance, sodomy as an example of it. It either is or it isn't. But
yeah,
and that's not even one of the 10 Commandments. Somebody might argue, well, you're so funny. You're bringing up sodomy as something that's black and white, and you're going to say that something that's on the 10 Commandments is less black and white than that. Oh my gosh. I mean, but again, in the very hypothetical situation, being on a spaceship, you go to sleep 6 times, and then you're like, listen, this is my Sabbath, and it might be on a Tuesday. It might be on any day of the week because you were incapacitated. You have no knowledge of anything, hypothetically, or Castaway. You know, good old Tom Hanks Castaway situation, where again you don't know how long you've been out, so on and so on. Um, Similar situation, but you're doing the best you can with what you've got. Um, it just seems to me that it's between you and God. And I think that if you know that you're doing something that isn't the way, like God's convicting you, and you're like, I could be doing this, but I just don't really feel like it. Well, then that's a situation that's between you and God that you probably ought not play around with that little um, sensation that you feel like you ought to be doing something, but you're not doing it. Well, that's what's called sin. Um, and it's not to be played around with or taken lightly. I need his email. I need to save it in my phone.
Yes,
Um,
you do. Now,
you
you like how I invited somebody else to your stream?
No, I mean, it's like 2 or 3 a.m. where he's at, but I'd always be
Yeah.
happy to just have him say hello.
Yeah,
Um,
he jumped on my. He didn't come on because I don't have a way to do this anymore. But he was
I
up in my chat last night.
Oh yeah, so just email me at devinjump@gmail.com. But for next time or something, we'll plan sometime, Preacher Bear. And then, all of a sudden Owen is streaming on his old channel, Owen Benjamin again, and then Owen Benjamin Comedy. So I'm only banned on Owen Benjamin Live.
Yeah, he jumps around on the 3 different channels.
And the only one I'm banned on is the one that he, over the past 5 or 6 months, has primarily been Owen Benjamin Live, and that's the one I'm actually banned on.
So
But anyway,
at the risk
I haven't
of
watched his video today, by the way. Just FYI.
well, I've only watched maybe 2 streams in the last
Here, I'll
3
make
months.
myself big.
So, yeah, I think I've only watched like 2 streams in the last month. I catch little clips and stuff here and there, but that's I can catch you up on drama if you want.
Atomic Pumpkin is what's up, y'all.
The what?
It's Atomic Pumpkin. It's got pumpkin and habanero.
Oh, yeah, gotcha.
It's pretty. It's amazing. Go ahead.
No, you're good. So so the Mike Maloney thing.
Yeah, I looked into Mike Maloney, fell in love with some chick on the internet, and he abandoned Owen because he heard something Nick Fuentes said. Nick Fuentes, I don't even know who would listen to that guy. I listened to a couple of minutes and I was just like, people like that guy. Like,
I heard a whole
it's weird.
it was about an hour-long interview between Nick Fuentes and Dave Smith. And Dave Smith is a
I don't know who that is.
comedian, but he's also a libertarian. And
Okay.
he's got a podcast called Part of the Problem. The Sabbath day is a great topic, a hot topic. When I discuss this topic, I tend to get the person to define what they mean by Sabbath. Preacher Bear is trying to get us back onto a good topic. The problem is, other than church history.
See, the problem is, go ahead.
Yeah, the thing is, the main thing is the thing. So the problem with the Sabbath is that's gonna bother you every time.
You see, the thing is, we destroyed all the technology, and it's a painful process to put it back together again.
I'd love to go back to the moon. Oh man, that's so
I mean,
funny.
we'd go back to the moon in a nanosecond.
That is hilarious.
Funny.
That whole thing is funny. Anyway, yeah, preacher said it took too long to type that, but so yeah, I feel like you can really only make a solid argument, and it's not that solid for Sunday based on church history. That's really all you can do. But I get what you're saying too. If you were to not know the calendar and just observe human existence, Christian human existence, you would just assume that Sunday was the Sabbath because that's how we treat it. Well, that's how some of us treat it. But anyway,
it's got a lot of mixed. Because some people, because I lean more on the side of there's Sunday and church, and there's the Sabbath, and they're unrelated. and I need a Sabbath, and Sunday doesn't replace that. Um, there can be overlap potentially, but it definitely doesn't replace it. And anyway, that's kind of where I stand with it. But
Hmm. All right, so on to the stupid thing with Fuentes. So Fuentes did an interview with Dave Smith for about an
okay,
hour,
yeah.
and that interview, if you didn't, same gear, we have Sunday, but we have Sabbath too. So y'all do
Yep.
both. So y'all do like Sunday worship, but Saturday observance or something. Try and explain that, Preacher Bear, while I talk about the racist Nick Fuentes. So
Thank you.
if you didn't know that he was a racist, because he clearly is.
You would
I'm
just
just
need to
saying,
watch 4.5 seconds of anything that he.
of anything else that he's done, and you would see it. I mean,
Yeah.
okay, at the very least, I'll be nice and not call him a racist and call him a supremacist. 100% he's a supremacist. So,
Which involves racism inevitably.
well, you could technically not hate someone, but just think that they're less valuable. I'm
Racism
trying.
isn't about hate. Racism is about identifying people and classifying them in a. I mean, it's about race. It's about looking at people in a based. It's about judging people based on their race rather than the content of who they are as a person. That's what racism is. So if you're a supremacist, then you're recognizing something about yourself that makes you different than all other people that are like you, and therefore you are a racist. You're a racist no matter what if you're a supremacist, because that is the definition of racism is when you look at people based on their race as opposed to who they are as a person.
Gotcha. Yeah. But
Unless you're
but
a
the problem with that
ethical
is,
supremacist. If
say it
you're
again.
like if you're a moral supremacist, hypothetically, then you've got pride and you have sin and it's oxymoronic. But hypothetically, you're a moral supremacist. Then no, you're not a racist because it's not about. Uh, but if you're a racial supremacist, if your supremacy in your own brain is based on your race, then you have to be a racist. Have to be.
So
There's
okay, all right. Well, let me finish this Nick Fuentes thought just about the Dave Smith interview,
Go ahead.
and then we'll follow up on that because
Go ahead.
I just have a question about that line of thinking.
Okay,
So
go ahead.
anyway, so Nick Fuentes is on with Dave Smith. Nick Fuentes basically gives all of his governmental, because he's a self-described paleo conservative. All right, which is whatever. Um, Used to be a libertarian, now he's a paleo conservative. And the primary reason he is this, even though he didn't say it in these words, I know who he is, so I know this is what he means, is because he thinks that the country cannot possibly be conserved without it being majority white. And so and beyond that, he's vitriolic toward Jews. Like
Sure, yeah.
anyone, not
Absurdly.
religiously, but genetically,
Absurdly.
anyone
Yeah.
genetically Jewish,
I
he
saw that.
is. Yeah, it's crazy. Um, so all right. So with that said, I've been kind of, even though Owen has said some things that are pretty awful about Fuentes. I mean, indefensible things he said about Nick Fuentes, uh, attacking his family and things that he shouldn't be doing.
Wait,
As a Christian, Owen has said things about Nick Fuentes that are not justifiable as a Christian.
because yeah, he's doing it out of in his own mind he's doing it as a retaliation. He thinks
Exactly.
he thinks because somebody comes at his wife or comes at his family that he can say and do anything that he wants, and he's justified to do so as a form of protection and self-defense
Yep.
in
Which
verbal banter, and don't you dare come after my family or I will end you.
which
It's
you didn't come after his family. You can say things that, listen, we have a respect for each other. I would never say anything about your wife. You'd never say anything about my wife. You probably wouldn't say anything about your worst enemy's wife, right? But the reality is, if I were to say something evil about your wife, that wouldn't justify you saying evil things about me before God.
well,
That would
no,
not.
because it doesn't
Right.
benefit anything. But
And it,
that's a
it
logical. See, Owen's still in the mindset that, well, on one hand, Owen thinks that he's being funny, and
right.
he also prides himself
Maybe,
on
maybe my
here.
ex-wife.
Here's what it is. Oh, that's
Sorry.
funny. Okay, so Owen prides himself on his ability to never back down. Owen prides himself on his ability to have verbal, here's that word again, supremacy over anybody. He believes that he can verbally spar with the best of them, and nobody will mess with the bear. Uh,
Yeah. Yeah.
Basically, is his mindset, and he also thinks that anybody that does back down is a cuckold,
Yep.
and and
Trippy says we're banned.
yeah,
Oh.
I know, it's true, banned for life.
So this is the sad truth. And if you see me on, yep, that's pride, that's dangerous. Preacher Bear's right. So this is the reality, Trippy Hell Hunter. Um, I have gone at Owen on Instagram, and when I say go at him, I mean I have disagreed with him. I have never attacked him personally. I would
Yeah,
never do that.
there's no
I have a
point.
lot of respect and appreciation for him,
Yeah,
and I don't attack anybody. However, I have challenged some of his ideas, and I haven't been banned, even though I've actually gone much further than people that I've seen get banned. So you're very right. Um, and but that would be one of my criticisms. You can't just I get banning trolls. I don't get banning people that just challenge your ideas. So,
he didn't used to
but
though. He didn't used to.
but I
He
know he didn't used to, and that's why I think the growth of that group of people that follow his stream specifically, um, it has affected him negatively that way.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
so here's the positive. Here's the positive. Because what I said about Owen is not wrong. I'm not wrong when I'm saying he was probably almost necessarily out of line with things that he said. But Nick Fuentes made Owen do something I didn't think was going to happen anytime soon. That was a really good thing. So Nick Fuentes went to the DNA route and was criticizing Owen because he's genetically Jewish, like 13% or some crazy number or whatever it is.
Yeah, yeah.
12.5% or whatever it is Jewish, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So Nick Fuentes went after him because he's not, white or whatever, because he has Jew blood in him. Well, Owen stopped being funny for a minute. Like he just stopped trying to be funny and flat out was like, okay, I'm trying to have fun pointing out Grabler behavior. This is Owen talking. I'm paraphrasing.
Yeah, yeah,
I'm
yeah.
trying to have fun pointing out Grabler behavior, and now you're trying to talk about DNA. That's disgusting. I didn't think people like you existed. I thought the idea of like race purity and people that cared about DNA, I thought that was just a prop for the Southern Poverty Law Center and all these other places. I didn't think it was real.
I
So
still don't think it is. I still
in a
don't think it is. I
way,
think somebody like Nick Fuentes is actually
controlled op.
not. Yeah, but different. Maybe a different. It's a yes, but a different category of that, in that you would pluck somebody from the insane asylum and put them in front of a camera to prove your point, even though it doesn't fit with reality. It's an exception to the rule rather than the rule itself. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, I hear you.
So, for instance, I used to work in a mental hospital, and there was a dude that was Adolf Hitler. Like, he was probably 380 pounds and 5'2", 5'3". He was a large fellow, and he had black hair. He had cut his hair. Dude tried really hard. He had little peach fuzz, black peach fuzz right here, and he wasn't genetically capable of even pulling off the little thing there, the little caterpillar over the lip. But he believed he was Adolf Hitler. But somebody, what I'm saying is, people will grab a dude like that I used to work with, and put him in front of a camera and act like, look, they're all over the place. I mean, look at this
Yeah.
guy. I mean, and that's kind of what I mean by somebody like
Well,
that.
when I say controlled opposition, I don't mean like everybody. I shouldn't say everybody. I'm using big time stereotypical and generalizing terms here. I shouldn't do that. Most people, when they refer to controlled opposition, they're talking about shills. They're talking about people that are bought and paid for in
Yeah,
order to, and they actually have power. They actually have some power because they're controlled opposition. I'm not meaning it like that. I mean exactly like the person you're talking about. Somebody that they prop up and they allow to do things,
to prove
even
their
if they're
point
not,
about
to prove their point.
anti-Semitism.
He's allowed to exist and he's not banned off of certain platforms. I'm talking about Fuentes
Exactly.
because they need him to exist.
They need
That's
him
what
to
I
exist.
mean. That's
Yes,
what I mean by controlled opposition. I don't mean like he's been given a script or anything like that. I
exactly.
just I just mean yeah, he's one of the like 300 people that think of like him in our
It's
country of
funny
600
because Preacher
million.
Bear says most controlled opposition don't know who they are, or don't know they are. And
Exactly.
yeah,
Boom. That's what I'm talking about right there.
yeah,
So anyway, what the cool thing that happened as a result is you got Owen coming out and he's breaking um the charade for a minute, the facade for a minute and going, look, guys, I'm not a racist. Now he actually did it in a funny way because what he did say, because that's the one stream I've watched in like 3 months was this stream. And
do you
it was
remember what number? How long ago this
oh
is?
Lord, it was this last week. So
Okay,
I'm
okay.
guessing it was like 663 or something like that,
Sure.
somewhere in that range. Anyway, and he was like, I'm a good-hearted anti-Semite. I'm not like these
I
anti-Semites where
I
they,
heard
they
him
care about DNA.
I heard him say that recently, the good-hearted.
Yeah.
And I was
Well,
like,
that got doubled up because somebody was like, that needs to be your next special, good-hearted anti-Semite.
my God. Oh
So,
God.
here's the thing. He let his guard down for a minute, and what it did is it gave me a little bit of peace of mind because for the last call it 9 months, I've been like, listen, Owen is not a racist. I've been like, I know that he's not. However, I am not going to be publicly defending that because I don't know for sure, even though I know. If that makes any sense.
I agree.
He's
Yeah,
he's just been
I've felt that a
so
ton.
yeah.
Yeah, I can't.
It's been incessant, bro.
Yeah, but he's doing it. But well, I mean, I guess the part about him that I just don't endorse is he's still immature, and he can't handle being, somebody calling him immature. But hey, Justin, what's up, man? Long time no see. Justin is, excuse, oh my goodness, it's funny. He said burp,
I
which
know.
cued me to make
Yeah.
sure to burp.
Yeah. Justin's a prophet.
I was just either a prophet or he's my puppet master. I don't know. Um, but what's up, Justin?
Justin,
Um,
make him do something else.
that's pretty funny.
See if it
Um,
works.
but yeah, all I'm saying is that I think most Christians would be like, there's plenty of immaturity that could be described about Owen. But then anybody that thinks about that for a minute also would recognize in a heartbeat the massive amount of fortitude, um, and, integrity. So like where Owen lacks in maturity and Christian maturity in regards to repentance, and well, maybe not repentance, but forgiveness, right? In letting things go, in
Yeah,
and
self-admitted on that one. He is very open about that he struggles with that
yeah.
part of scripture.
On
So
the other
yeah,
hand, he has strengths in the area of personal integrity, uh, and logical consistency and all that good stuff. Um, but I think integrity is the right word for him. And
yeah,
it kind of is interesting because if you think about it like this, about how we're the body of Christ, yeah, I see what you're doing there. Nice little prompt. Um,
preacher.
about how we're part of the body of Christ and we all serve a different role and we need each other. So there are others that are going to be stronger in areas of forgiveness, stronger in areas of grace, stronger in areas of self control, um, and those that are weak in their integrity, those that are double minded. In fact, double mindedness. I see what Preacher Bear said. That's pretty funny. Um, so the double mindedness actually was a topic that I wanted to do, um, because double mindedness I think is probably one of the most insidious um, issues in the body of Christ in among Christians, and especially among Christian men. I think that the double mindedness is, and lack of integrity between what you do, uh, in what you think is secret and what you do in front of people, being inconsistent. That
Yeah.
means you have a lack of integrity, and
I
and
completely
maybe
agree with
maybe
that.
women have issues of integrity as well. I'm sure they do because they're humans, but women are humans. News alert. Uh, but anyway, I was
Where did
looking.
that come from? I'm lost. Oh, there it is. I'm blessed with my wife. She helps with my temper. Yeah, preacher, I am 100% with you. My wife has helped my sanctification process with my temper to incredible levels, just amazing levels. And now she gets to laugh when somebody says, "Man, that guy's got a temper." She gets to laugh and go, "Oh, you have no idea. I've been fixing this dude for a while." But so there's there's only a couple things, and you're talking about a guy who's who has streamed basically every day for a minimum of 2 hours a day for the last year and a half to 2 years.
325 days out of the last 2 years, per year out of the last 2 years. So I would say he's
Right.
done no less than 650. Well, gosh, 666, I guess. See, I
He
was
did
about to say
666.
650, but he
No, he
has done
did.
at least 666 times, which is almost every single day for 2 years. Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
So so here's the thing. What are the odds that if you or I stream for 2 hours every day for, and some of them 5 hours, but 2 hours every day, that we might have some logical inconsistency somewhere? I mean, you're pretty logically consistent. I'm pretty logically consistent. But even there's going to be some things where we fail, and we probably didn't see it. We might have missed it. But man, when you put it out there for the world to see, somebody else is going to pick up on it. So for me, and actually, I took a lot of heat on Instagram for this. I made a meme the other day, and it was kind of going at Owen, even though it wasn't really going at Owen. It was going at other bears that were chastising me for being sarcastic, and they were preaching the same messages. Oh, and about let your yay be yay and your no be no, and like, and I'm like, listen, if it's comedy, and that's what it was. If it's comedy, I thought there were no rules. And I'm like, so on one hand, you can use the hard R, and you're okay, but you can't be sarcastic because that's the rules of comedy now. You can't be sarcastic because that would be a sin. But I can use a racial epithet and it's not a sin because it's comedy. Like, you got to stop it. It's either there's no rules in comedy and I'm being funny, or there's rules and you should follow them all, but you can't have it both ways. Was basically my point. And I got called. The reason why is I got called a gamma by some 22-year-old kid who didn't even. I mean, I don't weigh on this, but can't even grow facial hair, and he's calling me a gamma. He's got no family. He's, as far as I could tell, he's still in college, and he's calling me a gamma because I'm like, no, dude, I can be sarcastic. Stop it, you know. So anyway, it was all so stupid. So anyway, that's why I made that meme. I lost 14 followers on Instagram because I said that was logically inconsistent.
Yeah.
I'm just like, you people are silly.
It's interesting because sarcasm, I think that the argument against sarcasm, yeah, I guess I'll do this. It's your little cue. Um, let your
Yeah,
yes be yes. Let your
when I
yes be yes and your no be no. I think is the
yes,
argument against sarcasm, right?
yes, yep.
Um, no beard, no say. Simple. I'm working on it. I still feel like, I mean, compared to you, Jeremy, I feel like I have this little baby beard.
No, but you're doing good work, man.
It's 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 slow going. Um, I try to keep it. I the technique I have for cleaning up my neck is
Uh-huh.
getting harder and harder because,
You're gonna want to stop doing it.
and
How
then
long are you want? How long you're wanting to grow your beard?
a
Not to
year,
change topics.
a
So
year.
you're trying to do a year. So here's the thing. I am a year and 2 months.
Let me
And if I
let
could go back,
let's show your year again. Okay, go ahead. Well, I
and
get
I've cut
antsy.
it.
I get
I've cut.
antsy about the hair on my neck.
I got you.
It's a comfort thing.
I've cut it 3 times. I've cut almost 2 inches off of it 3 times
Oh
to, to,
wow.
to
Okay.
shape it, just to shape it, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Because I wasn't really trying to do the yeared thing. I just started growing it and didn't have a plan. I just started growing. Well, and if I could rewind, what I would have done is I only would have trimmed my neckline, so it didn't bother me when I wore a shirt with a higher collar.
Yeah.
Other than that, I would have allowed my neck to grow out because it makes it fuller. When it starts to get long, you know how thin it gets when it gets really long, and the way to combat that is to grow more, more surface area
I
growing,
see what you're saying. Yeah.
then it's thicker. Yeah, so you might want to trim a little lower is all.
Yeah, I might migrate lower. It is a little
Yeah,
easier.
because when
But
it starts getting really long, that's when it's going to
the
bother
biggest
you.
problem for me because I'm about 3 months in, the chin is newer, obviously, because you guys, I mean, my symbol, you guys can see my symbol. Wait, right over here. Um, my chin used to be shaved. Most of y'all know that. Um, so this chin part is only about 2.5 months, 3 months old, and then this over here is about 30 days older than that or something. Because there was a point a while back in like July or June or July, where I shaved everything off. Um, but um, I try to keep my hands off of it and everything, and try not to mess with it too much. But I'm still like, even still, I'm experiencing the split end thing, and it frustrates me.
Oil.
Yeah, adding
And
oil to my face is like a nightmare to me. But I guess it.
you don't use a lot. You don't need to use a lot. And but the big thing is the oil, especially if warm it up at all, it'll help make the hair stronger, longer.
I probably should do something because I've been using this castor oil soap.
Yeah,
And
I used to use this tea tree oil stuff, but it was kind of expensive. So what I started doing is I just looked at the ingredients and then tried to find a comparison. If you go into the ethnic section of your Walmart,
hey, Big B.
or whatever you use, hey, is Big B here? That's awesome. They'll have beards are warm. It's like a jacket for your face. Yes,
Better
beard
believe
oil
it.
and beeswax is good too, and
All right.
a good comb. A good comb is good to comb through it. But
Y'all can stare at Antarctica for a second while I try and invite some more people.
You're good. So anyway, there's some oils that are in much bigger quantities for about the same price if you start looking over in the other hair products that we're not allowed to get near the pomades, if you know what I'm saying. So
I'll get whatever, man. I've got. Oh wait.
Yeah, it's cheaper.
What's going on?
Big B Lupo donated
My
$1.
son shaved
Beards
on
are
October
awesome. God
31st
grew one.
so that he could grow his back out for No Shave November.
Beards are so awesome. God grew one. Big B Lupo said. Beards are so awesome. God grew one.
Why is that not showing up here?
How can I can't argue with that at all. Thank you.
Gotta refresh it.
Thank you for the donation.
Dude, Semper Bear is blowing up, dude.
Oh, is he?
Semper Bear's live stream. He's got 48 people. Goodness.
It's fantastic. I mean, I'm not a good actor. And I'm not saying that he's insincere. I would never say such a thing because I think that he's extremely genuine. It's just I don't have. I know I'm relatively boring. As far as my demeanor goes,
he's very charismatic.
Yeah, but the funny thing is, I may be boring. But I always have Vox Day to look at. I can always compare myself to that guy.
You see what we
Bigby, I did invite you, dude. You should totally hang out with us. And then
on my beard, I use beard oil, and I also use wax. And then
what is going on?
What you'll find is this is my Vox Day impression about if you were to speak about beards, he would make you want to shoot yourself in the face.
You know what's really funny? I'm gonna invite. I've got Semper Bear's email somewhere.
Live streaming.
Yeah, I'm gonna invite him. It's gonna be it'd be hilarious. He should totally come on here. The real
sandalwood is legit, Preacher Bear.
I love the cedar stuff.
Yeah, I've been using what's it called?
He should totally come on. It'd be so hilarious if he came on here.
I smell like a lumberyard when I use my my beard balm.
I've got to answer some.
Hopefully you don't get in restricted mode because I just said balm.
Oh no, restricted mode for one word. Jojoba oil with 3 drops of sandalwood. Orange neroli.
Bigby. Oh. That's funny.
Is this popping up in the main? Yeah, it sure is. So I got tired of staring at Trippy Hell Bear or whatever his name was, Trippy Hell Hunter. I was staring.
You had it paused, right?
Yeah, I refreshed.
I had it paused in the same spot. Was funny about it.
I don't want to stare at your comment all night, calling us racist, you silly silly
that
boy.
the only one that he did? Was that the only comment he made like that, or was there more?
No, the only one like that. Otherwise,
Okay.
he joked
Yeah.
around. Well, I don't. He might have been serious. He said banned, and then he never said anything else. He's probably still here. It says 7 viewers.
Yeah, we had
You know,
8
I
for a
invited
second.
like 3 more people, and you know,
Hey, did
whatever.
you put it in? I don't usually use it, but I did it last night. Did you put it in the gosh, what's that stupid app that I don't use?
Discord.
Discord, yeah.
I've been looking at Discord. It seems dead.
Yeah. Not very active.
Seems really dead.
Love you, Big B. We're talking about beards because we got off on that topic for some reason.
Man. Yeah, well, Big B, I tried to invite you. I tried to invite you, Big B, and you just did nothing. You know,
You know why? Do you know why he rejected you?
I usually assume it's because of alcohol, but
I firmly believe he's a douchebag. That's what I'm saying. Which means you may as well come on the stream since I already think that, Big B.
Oh my gosh. Well, I mean.
Did you read that comment he said?
Yeah.
I want you guys to continue thinking he was not one. Devin is right, you know. So I call that being affected, Big B. So you're just affected a little bit. It's
affected. That is interesting.
Oh man.
Discord Nitro. Get an enhanced Discord experience for one low monthly cost.
Screw that.
Whatever.
Discord, if I don't mute the notifications, annoys me every day, constantly. And if I do mute the notifications, which is what I've done, I don't go on there for a month at a time. So.
Did Facepalm, I'm just looking through the friends I have on Discord, and I was looking at a conversation. I haven't talked to Facepalmer since March.
Let me see. He's on Instagram because he liked one of my posts earlier today.
Let me
find him real quick, and I'll send him.
I haven't seen Random Randy in a super long time. I used to see.
Who was the dude that went to
Larry King?
Germany? Larry King.
Yeah, Larry King used to be here all the time. Haven't seen him in a while. And then Alex Woofy Bear, and there's 2 people that are on my Patreon, and Alex Woofy Bear and Josh Tot. And I hardly even know who Josh Tot is, but he decided to support me on Patreon. And those guys like never show up in the stream or like in the chat and stuff. They have no idea that has actually helped me buy groceries. It's helped me put gas in the tank. Transferring that money over to my bank account, like they don't realize that has actually helped me in tough times over the past 6 months. Maybe they do know, and that's why they haven't unsubscribe. But it has been really helpful. You're like, oh look, each one of them are on the $7 one, and anyway, it's nice. I appreciate it. What else going on?
Okay, so
we've got 8 people here, so maybe people are migrating over from Semper Bear.
I don't know. He was holding pretty good there.
I'm sure he was.
Let me look real quick because I can see.
He usually. Here's the thing. He's
at 47 right now.
See, here's my biggest downfall on my YouTube stuff is no plans. I don't. Here, I'll make myself big. You're making me self-conscious.
Get me off the screen. I shouldn't be on the screen anyway.
No plans. I don't plan this. I don't script this. I don't think about it. I show up and see what happens. Most people don't like that sort of thing. The people that have millions and millions of subscribers, they don't have a script per se. But they definitely have a plan. They
Build an
always have a
agenda.
plan.
That's the thing I need, and that's what I told my wife. So my wife and I told you we went to go see my kid in Arkansas, um, and it's the first time we got a chance to go up and see him since we dropped him off for college. So anyway, we flew, but because the airport we flew out of was in the middle of nowhere, was the Sanford Airport. And then the one we flew into was in Memphis, which is 2 hours from his college. We had round trip, we had 8 hours of driving where it was just me and my wife. Plus, we had at least a day where he had obligations because he was, there was a game, football game. So we got to spend a ton of time together, which was awesome because we never get to, And what happened was we just started talking about all kinds of things, and it's kind of like dating again a little bit because we were like talking about our futures a little bit, which we, haven't talked that much about since like, hey, what are we going to name these kids when we have them someday, And anyway, as a result, well, we were talking about the YouTube stuff, and one of the things that we went back and forth on is one of the issues I have with my YouTube is I like way too many things.
Yeah.
I have a diversity of interest, which is not common. What's cool about my diversity of interest is it means there's a lot of people that I can hold a conversation with. I may not be an expert in the field that we're going to talk about, but
This is and he's talking about Shapiru, and he's got 56 people right now.
56, nice.
Yeah.
Good. Shapiro freaking owned himself today or last night. He was an idiot. Whether you
Owen Benjamin highlights and L. Ron Humperdinck and Boingo Bear and Sergeant Peterson, and
I had Boingo last night.
It's Sawson. I mean, I think he's doing what I was doing back in February.
But he's consistent and he's always got a plan going with his streams. So that's one of the things we talked about. So I like that I could talk to a bunch of different people and hold a pretty good conversation, but I'm not an expert in in some of those things. So it's kind of weird to stream on them, even though I'm interested in them. My problem is there's not a lot of people that are interested in all the things I'm interested in, right?
Yeah.
So if I stream on football, like I could bore you with football talk in a heartbeat.
Well, me.
I'm talking about you for sure.
Yeah.
If you were to tune in, I would be like, Devin, I noticed you're here. You'll want to leave. Join me another day.
Yeah.
And so one of the things that I was thinking about doing, this is where I got good feedback from my wife on it, is possibly having like a rundown, especially if it's a stream by myself, since I'm not doing any group streams on mine. Since I don't know how, but just have an agenda that goes, all right, politics, I want to talk about this. Theology, I want to talk about this. Sports, I want to talk about this. Music, I want to talk about this. And then try and keep things compartmentalized along the way so then I can chop it up later, re-upload it as its own thing.
I can't. Not can't. I am not willing to edit video. I don't have time for that.
But I'm not even talking about producing it. I'm just talking about literally going, okay, so from 5:44 until 12:57, I talked about sports. Cut, upload it, that it's a sports topic.
I don't have time to upload a video, title it, any of that. It takes me a day or two to rename it. It takes me with about 24 hours to rename a video that I live streamed. Which
Are you serious?
I'm
Why
just
is that?
because I don't care. And I mean that, and I
thought you were talking about like your internet was so slow or something.
No, like it's because I'm not interested in being successful on YouTube.
I'm not either, and that's part of the problem too. I know you're exactly right.
So I like to make fun of having a certain number of subscribers. Oh, you're doing the thing to me.
Yeah,
I like to make fun of having a certain number of subscribers, or however many people are here, or how some people are here but choose not to talk. Like there's at least two people in the chat that are not talking at all, that are
yeah.
here. They're just watching. They're just um, slurking. I'm gonna make up new words about these people's behavior. They're slurking in the chat. um, yes, I made that up. But anyway, I do all that, but it's just as a, it's not a joke. It's not funny. So it's hard to say. I'm just joking. Um,
You're
maybe
not
I'm just,
serious though.
maybe I'm just fishing for, um, if you're able to read micro expressions, you can tell that
Big B Lupo donated $1. Let me produce your
I work
videos. I work for erythritol.
there are
So,
worse things that you could work for. I'll put it that way. It's funny because I've been watching a ton. Like I've watched for the past 2 weeks or 3 weeks now. I've watched about 20 hours a week on average of Kit Boga. Um, he on Twitch specifically, and Twitch is fascinating because Twitch consistently, perfectly. I get an email, stream is starting. I click the button. It takes me to the stream. No nonsense. Twitch is fascinating, and you know, if I mean, I guess that Streamlabs is probably fully capable of streaming to Twitch instead of YouTube. So I might. I looked up there's a method for streaming to more than one platform at the same time.
yeah,
Uh,
Restream IO or whatever it is.
but the setup seemed. I looked it up and I don't know. It seemed a little.
Well, it looks cumbersome to me, and I don't care enough about Twitch because I really don't care about. I don't know. I don't care enough. Uh,
Donald Trump is on Twitch. I mean,
well, good for him. I wish there was a way to stream both on Instagram and on YouTube because that's what I like doing. I've only streamed once on Instagram.
yeah, I don't know anything about.
It's
Every
pretty
time you
cool.
say Instagram, I think of 14-year-old girls
Yeah, but
and
listen, dude.
boys.
You know what? First of all, it's all about who you follow. But the thing with Instagram that I like is, well, for one thing, we could be doing this video easily on Instagram, but it only goes for like 20 minutes or something like that. But you can invite anybody that you're friends with to do a stream with you live. Boom. Just like that. And both of you the screen splits in half for each of
Gotcha.
you.
Yeah,
So
the
it's
the
pretty cool.
limitation on time is a little frustrating because I like marathons. What
Yeah,
is
so
this
that
one?
When Owen streams on Instagram, which he does,
He just starts another one.
he just starts a new one right
Yeah.
away, and people jump on it. It's easy to jump on the next stream, so you don't lose that much. You can do hangouts on Minds. Gosh, Big
Uh,
B, nobody's on Minds. I love you, buddy. I'm sorry. I want Minds to take off because it's a much better platform. I'm laughing so hard right now at that.
big big B, big B's. You think
Yes, thank you, Big B. That's what I was waiting for.
you would think that Big B gets paid money to talk about mines. You would think. I get
Yeah.
it. It would be really cool, but if it gets too cool, then it'll
Here's
no longer be cool anymore. It's kind of how that stuff
here's
works.
here's what I love right now. Big B, Big B. It sounds like MySpace. Big B has been enjoying the elements, and and I just talk trash about him and his platform, and he typed "Screw you, Jeremy." So in his home, much worse things were just said about me.
Awesome.
I appreciate your restraint, Big B.
There you go.
Oh man. Anyway, so what was I gonna say? Yeah, so I actually was like, I'm super happy that he had this blow up with Nick Fuentes because it let me in on the fact that he absolutely is not racist. He's pointing out behaviors that he doesn't like, and he's pointing out that they are stereotypically a certain group that behave that way, but it's not about genetics and it's not about race. And so I was like, oh, thank goodness, man, because he started to worry me. He would not stop with the apple juice talk. So
he
it was
also was
bothering me.
was hardcore on the phallic talk
Yeah,
for
yeah,
months,
that hasn't gone away that much either, from what I can tell. Well, it hasn't gone away on Instagram. I know that.
and I'm
The
like,
meme, the memes continue.
it's no
But
wonder
anyway,
that people call him of a certain persuasion just because if
yeah. Okay, so hey,
anyway.
what are your thoughts on? Because I'm going to draw a parallel here, even
And,
though it's not really fair. It's not fair to either one of them, but I'm going to draw a parallel between Owen and Kanye West.
okay, okay,
Um,
I'm listening. It's
and
interesting.
part of the reason why I'm going to draw that parallel is because Owen has now more than once called out Kanye on YouTube and on Instagram for being fake. That he doesn't believe he's real, believes he's a charlatan,
Oh
believes
no, that's
believes
annoying.
that believes adamantly believes Owen sings better. I prefer Owen's music to Kanye's music, even though I actually do like rap.
Oh, by
I
the
don't
way,
like I don't really like Kanye's music,
I
but
listened to his whole album, and
yeah,
for context sake, I've never heard any Kanye song ever prior to his new Jesus is King album. So
uh-huh.
I have no context for his otherly skills.
Okay,
Um,
so what I would say, Preacher
but
says he can't stand rap. Well, this is a rap inclusive community, however, we understand. So, um,
Owen may
Con-
sing better. It doesn't really. I don't really care. Owen Owen isn't a singer though.
yeah,
If Owen
no.
had to survive career wise on his singing abilities, he wouldn't make it a week.
Well, you say that, however, because of how driven Owen is, I think he would improve monumentally skill wise in the area of singing because he does have good tone and pretty good vocal control. And if he just consciously made an effort to be a better singer, I disagree. I think he could actually be pretty good, especially because anymore singing is not about how good the music is, it's about the experience, and he would definitely create an entertaining experience for
Would
people.
he
So
create the experience that the grabblers desire? And the answer is no.
that's
The
possible.
music industry is almost exclusively driven by uh,
Sorry.
uh
Did you read Preacher Bear's comment?
yeah. Um, well, the music industry is driven by fitting, like, accomplishing this sound magic, Kabbalah type stuff. I mean, like catchy tunes and melodies, and he's not good for the masses, and that's why I'm saying he wouldn't survive. I'm not saying I can't sing at all compared, at all, and compared to him, he would be a multi-trillionaire, but my singing versus his singing, if I would make $1, he would make $10 trillion. Like, I'm not trying to say that he's got no skill at all. I'm just saying I don't think that he would survive in the music industry because of what the music industry is. And then I
Yeah.
look at people like Brian T, Trejo. I think of people like underground J Money, like underground Christian hip hop artist. Hip hop is a not a good way. Whatever. Christian artists that
Yeah.
that aren't even in the limelight, I don't really know how they survive off of what they're doing exclusively without working another job.
Well, most of them do.
Yeah, I think most of them have to
Yeah, if you
because
go to, I swear, Nashville and Atlanta is very similar. Nashville is just like Hollywood for musicians, and what I mean by
yeah,
that is, if you go to Hollywood, somebody you just saw on TV is going to be serving you coffee. Same thing in Nashville.
yeah,
You'll go out to a club, and the waitress will be somebody you just heard on the radio.
yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
crazy, man.
So
But they
anyway,
just
all I'm saying is those guys are not rich because they also have integrity. And
right.
going back
Yeah,
to
no, you're right
Owen's
about that.
integrity, I just
Yeah.
uh,
And Big Dude, you're right. Owen has already said he doesn't think he has a good voice. I probably think Owen's voice is better than Owen thinks his voice is, if that makes sense. But that's because I'm the son of a music teacher. So
and
I hear
you know where potential is and you know what to
I
look
hear the
for. Yeah,
potential in
yeah,
his
yeah.
voice to
I
be
get
quite
that.
good.
And
So
when you say vocal control, I don't disagree with that because especially when he's doing like the Journey, like or whatever one of the recent songs he sang, I was like, okay, yeah. I mean, he definitely knows where to go,
yeah,
and can pull it off, and
dude,
his physical structure gives him the ability to. He usually sings an octave higher than I feel like he even could.
yeah,
Um,
dude, he will flip. This is what blows my mind. Like, I have a really good ear and I match pitch very well. But this dude will change keys. Like, what key do I want this? How about here? He'll find the key that he's
yeah,
singing
yeah,
in
yeah.
on the piano. It's just crazy how
That's
and
because
he's
he
very
has a
talented.
savant. He has a savant
Yeah,
brain for
no,
music, for
it's
sure.
crazy how good he is at that. But
But that being
um,
said,
bagpiper.
what?
Preacher Bear, it says, my music history is a bit more antisocial. Being a bagpiper, my game was loud and angry.
I hear you. That's it's an intimidating instrument.
Yeah, so that's one of the cool things about my son's college because it is Scottish. It's Presbyterian, so it's founded Scottish, and
Jesus.
they have bagpipes, dude, early in the morning. It's crazy. So they're yeah. Anyway, it's pretty cool. But what were we talking about real quick? Because I wanted to get
Wait,
back to it.
DMX made a song "Jesus Loves Me." I thought
I'm sure.
DMX was like not on our team at all.
I don't know, man. I'm not sure.
Preacher Bear said, "Yep." So I've got to leave.
Jesus loves me.
X gonna give it to you. Jesus, X, Christ.
Oh my
Is that what's
god.
going on?
I don't know. Ask Preacher, but I have no idea.
And when
I've
we
never heard
say
it.
X is gonna give it to you, we're talking about Christ for the X. I don't know.
Oh my gosh. All
That's
right.
the
So
only DMX song I know. By the way, is X gonna give it to you because
nice.
back in the late '90s, I listened to that song.
Proper
Uh,
tune. Look it up. Preacher Bear. Proper tune. I love. Hilarious. I
Jesus,
I got it queued up after this. Bigby says. All right. So
I'll play it. I'll
what?
play it right
Play
now.
it. That's our background track anyway. So
Whoops. Oh no. Back to the Bernie. We got to
what
get
I
rid of
would
that.
say, no, don't do that. What I would say about Kanye
Yeah,
is
go ahead.
because I've never been a fan about Kanye's music, right? Um, and I only mean like his style. I'm just not into his style of music. I made the joke the other day because I listened to his album. First of all, theologically sound album. It was it was good. There are things that you could possibly take issue with, but most of them you could easily talk up to.
I give his album an A
Yeah,
in lyrical slash not lyrical in theological soundness. I still
yeah,
give it an A.
I do
In
too. I do
musical
too.
quality, I think it's a B,
Yep.
B minus
So
at worst, and
okay,
overall, it's glory to God. Just chill out, y'all. All right,
what
let's
it?
listen to this real quick, and then
Yep,
I
you're good.
hold your thought though. Don't
I'm
lose it.
good. I'm good.
Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name.
Oh, I have
Thy
heard
kingdom
this.
come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation.
No, I
but
have
deliver
heard
us
this
from evil.
before actually.
For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. Jesus loves me, he told me so. That's why when it gets ugly, he hugs me because he knows me, yo. You gotta let go and let God. Sometimes from the get-go, you go hard. It's like the darker it gets, the brighter my light will shine. So regardless, I'm loving this life of mine. And with the Lord by my side, it don't matter what the car look like. Just let me in, cause I'm going for the ride. Faith is blind, ain't got the shit to believe it. I just know you gave me the word that I really needed. So I prayed for my enemies, I prayed for my family, my
Yeah, that's
friends,
good.
my loved ones.
All right, this video will definitely be marked
Yeah,
now.
we're
Uh,
done.
but well, I don't know. It's DMX and it's a Christian song, so maybe it won't. There's probably not a record company in the world that I've heard it before. Actually, I think I had looked it up and I was like, oh, so because there was the whole Run DMC thing with Reverend Run and there's some Christian stuff going on there. I say some liberally, but no, I had looked up different artists that had become Christians, and I think I saw that a while back within the last couple of years. I just forgot about it. But no, that's it's actually I like it, and the lyrics were pretty on point. Um, and I'm all for when these folks change their lives over.
So
But yeah,
I highly recommend listening to the interview between Durbin and
is that dude
Kanye.
that Steven Crowder used to make fun of?
Jeffrey Durbin.
No, the
No,
one that he puts
Jeff
the plaid shirt on and the mustache and pretends to be.
Kyler Skylar Turden,
Oh, okay, it's close. It's a close name.
which is a takeoff of Tyler Durden from Fight Club. Not yeah, Fight Club? Yeah, Fight Club. Right? Somebody correct me in the chat.
Skylar Turden.
Tyler, right? But Tyler Durden was Fight Club, right? Or am I getting that mixed up with something
That
else?
maybe, but why would that have anything to do with his character?
No, the character was he likes to pay homage to movies all the time. Crowder does. So it's Tyler Durden, but then he went Skylar Turden because yeah, you're right, Big B. That's my fault. We weren't supposed to talk about that thing that I won't talk about anymore. That was the first rule, and I violated it.
Nice.
Anyway, so that's
17
where
million
Skylar
views
Turden came
on
from.
that video there, Preacher Bear. Um, Lord, give me a sign by DMX.
Nice.
Preacher Bear was sharing.
Yeah. So here's the thing. So theologically, part of the main reason the album was sound theologically was because of this pastor that Jeff Durbin from Apologia Church interviewed. And his name's Andrew, and I cannot remember his last name, but he is the guy who was counseling with Kanye, and he was the guy who was originally preaching at the Sunday services. And he is a reformed guy. He is quite yeah, I don't know what camp means, preacher. I'm sorry. Chump.
Oh man, now
Anyway,
we're spiraling.
it's yeah, I got too many topics going on at once. But so I recommend listening to that interview because at the very least, Kanye is getting very wise counsel.
Good.
He
Good.
is being discipled by a guy who's on point. So that being said,
I mean, there's probably at least 15 Americans that are praying for Kanye on a daily basis, just statistically speaking.
yeah, dude, minimum.
There are
mean,
people that are praying for him.
there are so many people praying for Kanye. So, yeah, Justin, 100%. This dude is getting wise counsel. He's getting a theological background that a lot of new Christians aren't getting. Unfortunately for him, much like Owen, he's having to live out his newfound faith in the limelight, in the public eye. He's being judged for it. He's getting advice from a million different sources, and he also has to deal with the fact. Think about the drama in his house with Kim, which, by the way, there was an article that just came out. Let me pull it up real quick, not to get completely off track, but I posted about it on Instagram because I thought it was really good. Wayne Dupree did an article because Kim Kardashian came out. She declared she's returning to traditional moral values and she will dress more modest in the future. So already Kanye is apparently having an effect on his home, which is a really good sign of a man who's come to know the Lord, that he's going to take that role in his home, right? So that's really cool. But think about his home. He's got a wife who's been in pornographic film, is in the fashion industry, dresses very promiscuously. She also, you talking about me, dude? We all need to pull together and get intoxicating. Bro, I'm sorry. I'm on a crappy headphone microphone on my phone because I'm up at the church because you guys are interrupting work that I'm supposed to be doing for the church. Because you're all sinners.
Thank
I
God for Jesus.
And because I have no self-control, I'd rather be streaming. So if I was on the computer, we'd be good, dude. No $10 needed. Although I will take your $10, but it's not necessary. I'm not too proud for charity.
Yeah.
Anyway, what was I saying?
I'll remind you
Okay,
guys
so
that I've got 32 days to get to $1,000, and you guys might not understand why I put $1,000. It's because I need snow boots for at least one of my children, if not two of my children need snow boots. No, my daughters need snow boots, and I need undershirts, like thermal underwear type stuff, for really everybody except myself, because somehow I have a huge stockpile of that stuff for some reason. But my wife and kids, all like, there's a reason why I have $1,000 goal. So, um, but anyway, I'm just saying
yeah,
the stuff
if
isn't
you
up
guys,
there for kicks and giggles. It
if
actually
you can,
is tangibly there for
help
a reason.
out Devin Jumpstein with his
It was 7 degrees the other morning. 7 degrees the other morning. It's going to be. Look here. I'll show you guys. Go ahead and finish your thought while I look this up.
yeah,
It's
good.
crazy.
So okay, so just think about his home life. You've got that, and Preacher Bear, I'm with you 100%. He also has a father-in-law that is transgender.
Why is that fuzzy?
Right? What's fuzzy? My audio?
The 5 degree. There it is. There it is.
Big B Lupo donated $1.
So, a father-in-law that's transgender, a mother-in-law who's
It's
crazy,
9/10 of the problem.
and then he also has 4 children, I believe. He has 4 children, and they're looking to have more children, which is cool. But those 4 children so far had not been raised in a Christian home, and now he's going to be making that flip to trying to raise them with Christian values. I mean, I don't envy. I mean, I love his situation.
Yeah.
That God, if true, which I'm just going to say I believe it's true because I don't have evidence to say it's not, that God would rescue this guy who was blaspheming him, who put out albums calling himself Jesus, basically. I mean, that God would save him and use him to go from a blasphemer to a worshiper is just, it's something only God could do, right? Like it wouldn't happen any other way. But my whole point with this is Kanye, while he's going through this in the limelight, he has wise counsel speaking into his life. I don't think Owen has that benefit. And
No, the dude that Owen probably has most. I mean, he's got neighbors that who knows what kind of moral / religious life they have, but he's got Vox Day. But we all know that Vox Day is like this an amoeba of clarity. I would imagine that instead of iron sharpening iron, Vox Day is more like a hypothetically positive amoeba. Like he's ambiguously beneficial, hypothetically maybe. He's just, I don't know. He's very unusual dude. See, I've actually got him on right now, y'all. Just figured I'd show my leg off to the world with my 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 thermal
Let me jump back over so I can see your leg.
my thermal underwear. Leave and cleave. Who was that devoted to?
That was Preacher Bear was talking about that Kim needs to leave her mother and father behind and
Oh yeah.
and go the way of her husband. Which I mean, if that article is true, which who knows how accurate the article is, but I don't think Wayne Dupree is duplicitous, but we'll see. She's at least taking the stance of wanting to be more moral. And so I look at it like this, man.
I hear you, Preacher Bear, on that.
It's all good. It's all good to have more people living out morality. So
Big B said that was disturbing. It was disturbing for y'all to see my thermal underwear.
I didn't see it.
I have a
So
pair
you're
of
good.
shorts. You want to see them?
No, I'm good, man. I already switched back off of there.
I have a pair of.
Anytime my face goes off there, it means I flipped over to the chat.
Oh, I got
When
you.
it switches to the image, yeah, it's because I went over to the chat.
Preacher Bear's like, no.
See, maybe you're right, Preacher Bear, but what about narcissism? I had to check myself and wonder if he has his own. Oh, talking about Vox, maybe? Or no, I don't know. Oh, the problem I think Owen has with having a faith leader is the damage done him in his past. Yeah, you might be right with that, brother. That's probably a really good point that he was abused in the past by a faith leader. I struggle. Yeah, I got you, Big B. It took me a minute, but I got there.
When you've been hurt and when you've been wronged, it is hard to get started again.
I've been there. I rejected the church for a while because of how they. No, I didn't experience sexual abuse, but I saw how they abused my father as a minister, and wanted nothing to do with them. So I get it.
Yeah, Big B was talking about Owen and narcissism. So I'm trying to do a count. Got Preacher Justin, Big B, and you. It's 4. There's 2 to 3 people completely silent here right now, thinking that they're just the bees. You think that you're the bee's knee. You think that you're a bag of chips and all of that with orange soda poured on top, because all that and orange soda, that's just what came to mind. You think that you're so cool.
We're at 8. We're at 8, and you're going to lose them.
Oh, man. We are, because I'm complaining again.
This is not the kind of content that you're going to get anywhere else, guys.
That's a fact. I've looked.
These 1990s references that Devin brings out with cool beans and a bag of chips, you're not going to get this kind of content somewhere else.
It's true.
This is the only place on the entire internet where
it's true. I'm a renaissance man of of unique references. So yeah, for real, Tuesday it's going to be 18 as the high. The low on Monday is 5, and it's the beginning of November, you guys. I'm interested in seeing what this is going to be like this winter. With that being said, um, it's only 32 degrees right now, so
Nice.
it's
All
going to
right.
be 48 tomorrow. It's the warmest day for probably the next 4 or 5 months. Um, so, oh, what's that? Preacher Bear is doing that funny thing where he says, "What's that in
Oh,
real temperature?" I
yeah,
think that's
yeah.
hilarious.
What is that in Kelvin?
What is 8 degrees in Kelvin?
Is that not what you're referring to, Preacher? That's what happened.
That's what just
The
happened.
place called Kelvin,
Thank
Australia.
you, Siri, for your worthless nonsense.
You suck as usual.
I just hate. I don't even know why I try. My brother-in-law used to like he just killed it on Siri. He was always using hey Siri, and I was like, Siri is worthless. It never gives me what I want. It's the worst relationship ever. All right. What
Which
is
is stupid because I'm great. I know this sounds stupid to a lot of people, but I am great at searching Google. I'm really good at getting the right combination of words to get what
yeah.
I want on Google, but not when I use anything like Siri. Anyway,
So
um,
it appears that why is there not a Fahrenheit? Where's a where's a Kelvin calculator? Fahrenheit to Kelvin. It's got to be a little simple.
so
Go ahead.
yeah. So back on what I was saying, I'm going to say something that'll be popular with a lot of people that tune in here, and that is I kind of blame Steven Crowder for what Owen's going through as far as the lack of theological development, the lack of uh, significant spiritual growth in the areas that he does struggle. Because we already mentioned the things that we think he's doing well, but in the areas that he does struggle, he doesn't seem to be growing in those areas. And I'm 3,000 miles away, so who am I? But I blame Steven Crowder for a couple reasons. One, I think when Owen started to devolve a little bit was when Crowder had his own health issue, right? In last December
Yeah.
and into January. And I think Crowder was basically a sucky friend during that.
Yeah.
Considering he was the more spiritually mature one in that relationship and the crap that Owen was going through during that month. And so Bigby, I think because Crowder was the one who encouraged Owen to come back to Christ, and in my opinion, come to Christ in the first place, because it sounds like his background in the Catholic Church did not draw him to Christ at all. He failed him in that he didn't encourage him to get plugged in to a church
Exactly.
that having yourself placed under the authority of a church is actually a good thing for your spiritual growth. It's a good thing for your accountability. It's a good thing for your discipleship. He didn't encourage him in that way. And then, yeah, he was a pretty sucky friend in the month where he was having and I get that Crowder was having a bad month too. However, I really don't think that Crowder did him justice. So Crowder can sit there and complain about the lollipops and fancy pants and the homosexual references and all that. But you know what? You brought that on your dang self, because if you had been a good friend and led by example and not cross-dressed every show, and I mean,
Well, that's just poor poor taste in what you want to do for entertainment.
I just don't even think his show's funny anymore. I don't know how much of that is Owens not writing on it anymore.
So I
And
used to watch
but
Crowder like I watch Mark Dice, and I still watch Mark Dice, but just showed Mark Dice to my wife again. I showed Mark Dice to my wife a year or so ago when he was doing the "Do you want a chocolate bar or a gold coin?" and people are like, "Oh, just take the Hershey's uh because they're retarded." I'd be like, "Bro, are you gonna like kill me or beat me up if I take the gold coin?" And that's what I would have said to him. I'd be like, "I don't care if the thing's fake. It looks cool. I don't need no stupid piece of Hershey's. Are you retarded? I mean, I'll take a fake gold coin over just for the chance that it's worth $1. Anyway, Mark Dice had done this street social experiment thing, and that's kind of how I learned about him at first. But I think Mark Dice is horribly annoying, but I love to watch him because I like his content, and I know that he's just playing a character. Because then I watch him on the news, and I'm like, oh, this guy, he sounds like a genius. When you watch him on the news, it's like, whoa,
yes,
this dude's like a 180, like,
yeah,
okay, maybe not a 180, but like
no, but when he's
he's
giving
high.
analysis, it's definitely coming off a lot smarter than.
You listen to Mark Dice on the news, it's like this dude knows his stuff, and he is no fool, and he's obviously writing books, which isn't easy. It seems like everybody's writing a book.
Well, he may have a ghostwriter too. I'm not saying he does. I'm just saying he might.
He might, but it would be very disingenuous if he did, because of the way that he um, advertises those books.
Yeah,
But
he wouldn't be the first one though to be disingenuous in that. But yeah, I agree
sounds
with
like
you there.
we got a little butt hurt history here,
No,
Jeremy.
no, 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 not at all. I just think I get annoyed with that in general because I think so. One of my favorite people on the internet is Michael Malice, and Michael Malice is a writer, but he's also a ghostwriter.
Okay.
And it's one of those things where when you find out the amount of people that basically their book was written by Michael Malice, you're like, well, why don't you just tell me that and I'll just read Michael Malice? But anyway, he's a legendary Twitter troll.
I
He's
definitely think
pretty
that
funny.
I definitely think that Owen saw Crowder as a faith father figure. But that being
100%.
said, I think that he probably even looks at Vox in that way in some regards as a
Which is
form of
unfortunate.
a rock, which is it's not that it's just unfortunate, it's that it's confusing. Because if you've been betrayed as many times as Owen that we know of, which he shares a lot of his life, but if you've been betrayed as many times as he has,
Yeah. No wonder he burns bridges so easily because
yeah,
bridges have been burned with him. So
yeah.
in his perspective, so easily. I know he feels like Crowder burned that bridge, and he literally he took the remnants of the bridge that Crowder burned and ground them up, and I don't know what he
I think that,
pulverized them to
and
non-existence. But
I I could be completely wrong, and this isn't necessarily an attempt to defend Crowder at all, but my suspicion is that Crowder did what he thought was necessary because what Owen was saying
mm-hmm.
publicly was too mentally overwhelming. He didn't know how to handle it. So he felt like it would be better for him to just sever ties
Yes.
than to try to
Well,
sincerely and genuinely maintain a relationship. Um, and
yeah.
I can relate with that mentality, but it goes back to this question of what do you value?
Yep.
And then when you answer that question, what do you value? You better be honest and you better act on it. Is just how I see it. So
So, couple things. First of all, Bigby, Michael Malice is his stage name. It's Michael and then some Russian name. is his given name. But so Malice is just what he uses to write under and use it as a stage name. Crowder, man, I'm not trying to blow people up because who am I? I suck as a human, so I'm not trying to like put myself on any pedestal. But Crowder just really frustrates me because I feel like he is from a distance. He is motivated by money to a very, very bad extent, and the way he treated, like we're way past this stuff, but the way he treated Jared, the way he treated what's his name, Sven, like it's pretty obvious that yeah, preacher, Michael Malice was born in Russia. Now he lives in America, so he's probably a spy. I think he helped get Trump elected. So, but the way he treated, and then the way he treated Owen personally, not just professionally, but personally, makes me think, wow, this dude is always motivated by money. Now add to that
No,
is
fear,
add,
fear,
huh?
fear, not
Fear?
money. I don't think he's motivated by money. I think he's motivated by fear and the
Fear of
pursuit,
failure?
of success,
Ah,
and the fear of losing that, what he perceives to be success in his life. It's the same
gotcha.
reason why preachers that are pursuing churches and they don't think that they're successful unless 350 are in the church one year, and they have to grow those numbers every year. They're not
They have to grow
successful.
numerically or they suck. Yep,
So
yep, yep.
I think that it's a fear based thing and not necessarily greed. Because if you say
Yep.
somebody's
No, you're
motivated by
right.
money, it's about greed. And that's why the shekel thing I didn't think was funny or accurate. I think that it is all about fear, and that's and the reason I can justify that, or what I would use to justify that, would be the stuff about how he wasn't willing to even dialogue about the things he might not understand or agree with.
So
Earth,
now,
moon, whatever.
yeah. So now Preacher Bear is hitting on exactly what I was about to say. I was mainly going to talk about Ben, but I'll talk about Beck first. So
Sure.
he works for a cult member,
Yes.
who rejects the
Mormonism,
deity
right?
of Christ,
Beck
right? Who
is
rejects the
Beck
deity
is
of
a
Christ.
Mormon.
Yep, he's a
Yeah,
Mormon.
yeah.
Rejects the Trinity, rejects the deity of Christ, blah blah blah. Okay.
Rejects the Jesus of the Bible. Period. Because he
Sure.
doesn't read the Bible, he reads the Book of Mormon,
And
which is
now,
not the Bible.
worse than that, he is friends with, not just works with, but is friends with a Talmud ascribing, Jesus hating Jew. Like a rejecter of Christ who has blasphemed Christ publicly.
That was
And
an interesting. Did you watch that video with Vincent James
Vincent
calling
James, yes, I did. And
Matt Walsh?
Matt looked terrible. Walsh looked awful, in my opinion.
Yeah, I have some mixed feelings about that because I think that Matt Walsh's argument was actually somewhat sound, but
If he hadn't completely reframed the question, because he never answered the question that was actually asked.
because
He
he was
wasn't asked.
trying
He
to
wasn't.
take it
Go
at its
ahead.
base. He was trying
What?
to reframe the question because there's a base premise. But let
The
me
base
finish though.
premise was wrong.
Let me
He was trying to
I know.
answer
Let
the
me finish.
question off. Go ahead. Sorry.
There's an assumption that Vincent
Okay.
James communicated that it is unchristlike or
Okay.
inherently evil to
Right.
work for somebody that blasphemes Jesus publicly.
Mm-hmm.
That is an assumption that Vincent James communicated, and
Gotcha.
and I could be wrong, but my the way that I saw that, the way that I looked at that was that Matt Walsh was annoyed by that assumption and
Right.
and tried to say that essentially everyone blasphemes Jesus. It's just not as overt. And I think that that's why he was trying to blur the lines. It wasn't to excuse himself. I think it was more so to be like, what did he call it, a non sequitur or whatever. But
Yeah.
um, but that's why I was like, he might be wrong. He might be wrong,
So
but
yeah.
I understood why he was saying what he was saying and why he defended himself the way that he did, because if Vincent James is correct, then obviously Matt Walsh is wrong. But if Vincent James' assumption is not 100% a fact, that there is some type of magic, I don't, magical is a rude word to use, that there's some type of line. I worked for an Orthodox Jew who definitely didn't believe, uh, he definitely didn't espouse anything positive about Jesus. He was like the interview. I don't know if you've seen the interview where some dude travels the streets of Jerusalem, talks to modern Jews, and says, "Hey, who is Jesus to you?" And they're like, Jesus, nobody. He's nothing to me. I don't know who that is. Then they're like, Jesus of Nazareth, from the Bible, and they're like, who? They think, like, it was interesting. It was fascinating because these people in Israel had, unlike America, where it's almost an assumption that everybody in America knows who Jesus is. They had no idea. It's like, I don't know who you're talking about. Like, um, but anyway, um, all I'm saying is I've worked for people that the same kind of argument could almost be made. Um, and I don't think it's about, because here's what confuses me logistically is the working for. Just because you work for someone, it's like, how could you work at Microsoft as a Christian? Don't you know anything about Bill Gates? I mean, how could you possibly do that? How could you work for the federal government if the president is an active, like, let's say Hillary was president and you're a federal employee? How could you, as a Christian, possibly work for the federal government if your boss, the president, as a federal employee, the president is hypothetically your boss? Oh, whatever, work it out. Okay, if I'm getting the details wrong in the structure there, whatever, you get my point. So this, you could work this argument out over and over again. How could you do it if they're a espoused blasphemer? um how could you do that? And that question requires an assumption that working for somebody is a what's the word, that you endorse the beliefs and the thoughts of that person. I
Yeah.
suppose. So there's a leap, there's a bridge, there's a connection there that I don't agree with or
Yeah.
see explicitly. And if it is there explicitly, then I'd love to better
So here
understand that.
so here's why I disagree though.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
first of all, full disclosure, I do not like Matt Walsh.
yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Just if I come off biased, it's possible.
He's
It's
just
possible that
underwhelming to me. I
I
would
will
call him
admit that
underwhelming, but you
he's
go ahead.
underwhelming. Here's why I don't like him. I don't like him because he has been critical to a sinful degree, in my opinion, toward Protestants. He has been hateful toward Protestants. He will all of the nonsense that has gone in in the Catholic Church, including the Pope saying homosexuality is okay and allowing people to take communion that shouldn't be taking communion, and pedophilia amongst the priests. And he will post a picture. Vincent James has done the same thing. He'll post a picture of a church with a rainbow out in front of it, and everyone's welcome here. And he'll say, "Oh, Protestantism at work, folks," and all this stuff. And if he was in front of me, I would tell him off. I want to punch him. I wouldn't punch him, but I'd want to punch him. So, full disclosure, I don't like Matt Walsh.
Yeah.
But my issue with the way he answered the question was that wasn't the question. The question was not, should you work for somebody who's not a Christian? The question was, how do you justify? How do you get around working for someone who openly blasphemed Christ by declaring on the largest podcast in the world that he was a criminal who was killed by the Romans for his troubles?
So what if Matt Walsh, am I cutting you off?
Nope, you're good.
What if Matt Walsh had said, he's my boss and he writes my paycheck, but he does not dictate my thoughts. He does not dictate my beliefs. He does not dictate or script my words that I share with you on my show. He actually provides me the opportunity, freedom of speech, to speak my mind and to share my beliefs according to the Bible. Hypothetically, if he were to say such a thing,
Right.
and that's how I justify it, is because though he did blaspheme, and though that is obviously sad and inappropriate, I appreciate the opportunity to be able to have even a semblance of a relationship with somebody in that condition, with those kinds of sorrowful, heartbreaking beliefs about our Lord and Savior. So that's how I justify it, is because I feel like God has put me in a special position to be able to minister to somebody like that. And I thank God for the opportunity to be here. And as soon as He sees it unfit for to pay me for sharing my faith in Christ, then so be it. But God works in mysterious ways, and I think through God's providence, He's allowed me to work for a blasphemer. And maybe that's just God's way of eventually changing the heart of his blasphemy towards a love for God, and obviously, more importantly, a love for Jesus. I mean, if he had have said that, wouldn't Vincent James have sat down and just been like, "I'm done," right?
I mean, so first of all, yes. First of all, yes. Like, that's a good answer, because even if you disagreed, he didn't skirt the question, and that was my issue. Is he reframed so that he could skirt the question?
And
Because
maybe I justified a little bit too much for him, but that's just how I looked at it. That's how I looked at it.
And I can understand somebody giving me that justification, and then I could look at that person and say exactly what Bigby said earlier. Well, only God knows if what you're doing is wrong, because there's not technically that would be a gray area that I don't know for sure. I know that I might not do it, but I don't know for sure that you doing it is sin, right? So at the very least, you could go, all right, well, we're going to let God sort that out, but at least you answered the question. On the other hand, the way that Matt Walsh answered the question, the reason why it was spineless, am I biased? Maybe. The reason why it was spineless was because I don't know very many Christians in my personal life that if they got asked about somebody blaspheming, I don't know anybody that wouldn't say, well, clearly that's a sin. However, here's the situation. He refused to call out the fact that was actually sinful, and he
almost defended him. I get that.
And that was gross to me. Instead of saying, hey, we all know unbelievers, hey, he's Jewish, He's Jewish. Am I shocked that my Jewish boss doesn't believe Jesus was the Messiah? Like, that's not what happened.
Yeah,
He didn't
yeah,
say,
yeah,
well, I
yeah,
don't believe he's the son of God. He said he was a criminal and the Romans called. So not only did he deny the deity of Christ, which obviously he's going to deny the deity of Christ
yeah,
because he's a Jew who's rejecting Christ. But secondly, he didn't even take responsibility for the death of Jesus. Jesus was killed because the Jews wanted him killed for blaspheming himself because he was calling himself God. That's why he was killed. The Romans would not have given two craps about the fact that he was claiming to be God. They didn't care. So on both levels, that was ridiculous. And I just go, I'm fine with you giving me some justification for how you can get around working for him, but don't defend the sin and then skirt the question.
yeah.
And then what he did was he managed to ramble on so much about it that he didn't have to answer for the Covington question because Ben Shapiro retweeted multiple people on their attacks of the Covington kids. And in his speech last night, he come out and goes, oh, no, I helped the Covington kids. Yeah, you did. After the fact, he helped the Covington kids because of guilt.
Gotcha.
Because he retweeted people that were calling them, all kinds of garbage instead of waiting for the full story to come out. So anyway, that's my take on that whole little interaction was I just felt like it was. Now, Vincent James was definitely trying to have a gotcha moment, right?
Yeah.
No question. He was not, it wasn't
I wonder
necessarily a
what
good
the
faith
chances
question,
are. I wonder what the chances are that he didn't know him.
Oh, it's possible. He didn't have his hat on.
He looked very different. He really did look
Right?
very different.
I'm sure he wasn't wearing a red elephant shirt. I didn't notice.
Yeah, no, I don't think that he was. But that anyway.
Hey, what's going on in the chat? Because we haven't.
Yeah, I was looking at the chat and I was still thinking about what you guys were saying and everything. The not being able to work for somebody. I mean, I think it really depends. I think it depends on your fortitude as a person. Preacher Bear, I think it was saying, yeah, he was saying if you work for somebody, you promote that person. I think that's potentially debatable. I understand what you mean. Unless, well, I mean, think about somebody like Tucker Carlson, though. Tucker Carlson works for tons of people that he doesn't agree with. But
Sure.
Tucker Carlson brings a unique section or sect of people that watch him and could care less about anybody else. There are, like for me, if it's anybody except for him, I don't watch Fox News at all. But I'll
Yeah,
watch a couple Tucker Carlson clips, even if he is controlled opposition, because he's the if in the world of controlled opposition and it's all puppet games and all this stuff, at least he makes more sense than most anything else. I mean, I'm not trying to talk about like eating the filet mignon in the Matrix or anything like that, but
no, but Tucker gets that. This is the big thing with Tucker for me is he gets this whole thing is based on class. It's not about race, and it's not even about money. It's about power and class. And if they can,
I
if
don't
the
know who Michael
elite,
Savage is.
Michael Savage, you look him up. He actually does podcasting. He's hard for me to listen to though, Big B, because his voice is kind of rough. Tucker Carlson's got that smooth, polished voice to listen to. But Tucker gets that it's a class system, and if the elite can keep the other classes fighting with each other and not unified, then they can stay in power. But if they ever unify, they won't be in power anymore. And it goes. I mean, that
Your
goes
mic
back.
is going crazy.
Are you serious? I'm sorry.
Just robot-y.
I can hold it up off of my shirt. I think it was laying against my shirt. Is that better?
Yeah, it was going a little, maybe not robot-y, more squeaky. It was going this weird squeaky. It's all good. You keep going. It's fine.
Yeah. No, but it's a class system. That's what it's what it all is. And that's been the way it's been, I mean, shoot, for thousands of years, really, that it's a class-based system.
Yeah.
And back in Israel, it was, the Sanhedrin were the elites. You know what I mean? Like it's always been that way.
And that's why I was reading some articles about the Sanhedrin again, because I think that group is going to be very important to learn from and understand, just to kind of understand where things are going. I think the more that we research and understand about the modern Sanhedrin, the more we're going to understand about what's to come over the next 10 to 20 years. But I could be wrong. Yeah, that Michael Savage thing. I looked him up briefly. It looks like I saw the Savage Nation thing and all that.
Yeah, Savage Nation.
Yeah, I think I've heard of that before. I've probably listened to it, but
no, he's good. He's good.
It's cool. Listening to him, Michael Savage, before BS made the scene. Who's BS?
Ben Shapiro.
Oh, thank you. That's hilarious that his initials are BS.
Oh, that's great. That's great work.
It's funny because a year and a half ago, or I guess
Yep.
2 years ago, I was at my mom's, like I was visiting my family and out of state, and I was seeing him and I was like, you got to check this guy out. He's so cool. And I'm like pulling up some Ben Shapiro videos where he's roasting on abortion and stuff, and I was like, man, this guy's so cool, and sharing them with my family and everything, and they're like, yeah, that sounds interesting. And they were just like not really into it, and it was weird because
probably mainly because of his voice.
Yeah, and I was showing them a PragerU video at the time, and my aunt walked in. She was visiting too, and she like just started cracking up. She's like, who on earth would ever watch a video like this? This is so boring. This looks like something that would put you to sleep. This is the most annoying. And I'm just like, because at that time I was looking at PragerU videos as the tiny glimmer of truth that existed in a world full of lies. And that's kind of what I was looking at PragerU videos as, like in a world of nonsense and lies and subversion. I mean, these guys are at least saying a little something that's cool. And then she walks in and she's just like, just tearing it apart. And I'm like, that's really fascinating that you had such a huge response to that. And it was very weird, very, very weird. Because a lot of my family's very pro-liberal, which is weird. I didn't grow up that way at all, but things have changed. I think my sister's basically converted my whole family on the social justice spectrum. So it's
I think my stream next week is going to be about social justice. I'm going to try and stream every week now.
Well, it's interesting because that topic, social justice, because social justice is a great thing. It's a very good thing. It's about how I mean, it's very biblical, but
talk about it from a biblical perspective for sure.
Yeah. But the problem is
it's been co-opted.
Yeah.
Co-opted.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. That's a great way to put it. Yep. Well, I'll be dead in 12 years. Oh boy.
I think Prager's still decent. I'm not a big fan of Candace Owens. I think she's too immature to be given the platform that she's been given. She doesn't know anything about what she's talking about.
No, Candace Owens is like a conservative version of AOC.
Yeah,
she's personality-wise, she's just like she's just like AOC.
Physically attractive. She speaks pretty well, and she's definitely passionate. So they prop her up, But what was I saying? Oh, but I can't even listen to Shapiro anymore. I can't listen to him at all.
I wouldn't want to.
I can't handle it. He is so in the pocket of the war machine.
Yeah, that's what it's all about for me. Once I realized how war what's it called? Warmonger. Yeah, how much of a war?
Warmongering.
I was just like, yeah, I ain't about that.
No,
That's why I'm
people
I'm a
tell me all
Ron
the
Paul.
time.
I'm a Ron Paul guy.
Yeah, I'm not entirely Ron Paul, but Ron Paul revolutionized the Republican Party, at least to an extent where you can bring it up now. You couldn't even bring up the idea of being anti-war in the Republican Party before, but now you can.
Ron
But
Paul was a good guy.
the
Poor old man.
but when you see
Not enough
how
respect.
disingenuous Ben Shapiro is when it comes to Israel and war, it's like
Yeah.
once you see it, you can't unsee it, and now I can't listen to him at all. So
Verbal diarrhea. Yeah. Bring back the monarchy. All right. Who you putting as
yeah,
king?
no thanks. I don't need a family leading the country, even though that's what's already happening. I mean, if you don't think
Yeah.
that over the last 20 years the Clintons haven't controlled almost everything that happens, and whoever the
Because weren't the
Clintons are
Bushes
working for
related?
that you don't know.
Aren't they related?
Who?
Aren't the Bushes and Clintons related?
Oh, they might be. I mean, if you look at this, is what's so interesting to me, and this is why the Trump thing is so volatile. Is and this is one of the things that the guy like Dave Smith talks about. He, if you actually look at the laws they pass and how they actually govern, what wars they get us into, and things like that, go to George Herbert Walker Bush, Bill Clinton, George W. Bush, Barack Obama, and tell me, just based on policies passed and wars, whether they're a Christian or not, whether they're Republican or Democrat. They can't don't pay attention to campaigning. What they say on the campaign trail is something completely different. But they all basically governed the exact same way. The only thing that you might say was different was the gay marriage thing. That's the only thing where Obama,
He flip-flopped on that though.
he had to flip flop on it.
He flip-flopped
His
on several big things.
he flip flopped on that because of public outcry. He felt the groundswell was changing, and the country was changing in its respect to gay marriage. And so, to me, the only reason he changed on it wasn't principled; it was populism.
Yes.
So, but you look at the wars that he got us into, the laws that they make, the welfare state that every single one of those presidents grew,
Preacher Bear is
the,
dropping pills in the chat.
the lack of budgeting, they refuse to budget. Conservatives don't conserve anything. So Michael Malice has a phrase, and I think I've told you it before, and I love this phrase. It is conservatism is progressivism going the speed limit. You will end up in the same place. You just get there a little bit slower.
Interesting.
And I agree. Because they're not
Well,
principled.
that's only because it's all about the ruling class. It doesn't matter what party's in control,
Classes.
because the
They're all in the
ruling class.
They go to everybody's weddings. They go to everybody's Christmas parties.
Yep.
They go vacation together. They get on the Senate floor and they scream at each other like they're enemies, and then they go buddy buddy until Trump. Trump was never supposed to win.
It's debatable because of his ties.
Or is he controlled up?
Adam, Adam Green would definitely tell you that it was all planned, and by who. Because Adam Green ties the whole Trump family to those people, as I refer to them affectionately as.
Yes. The
Interesting.
Russians, oy vey.
Oh yeah, that's it. Yeah, it's funny because I was actually talking to one of the local people here recently. randomly about looking up coats online and how like some of the best coat deals I could find were like these antique Russian coats, and the look that they gave me when I said it just makes it's interesting because people that aren't really aren't really elbow deep in modern politics and modern well okay, let me take that back. People that only consume mainstream media and they hear you talking about Russians, they're the mentality of America and Russians is they're trying to it hasn't changed much since the 40s and 50s with the Red Scare. For some reason, somebody sees it very fit to maintain dissonance between America and Russia. And that was one of the most interesting things I learned from Vintage Space YouTube channel. It's this girl that does NASA. Well, she doesn't work for NASA, but she does all these debunking the moon landing as a hoax. She debunks the conspiracy theories or whatever, if that's what you want to call them, or whatever. Anyway, one of the
I
video.
don't consider conspiracy theory to be a negative term.
I know
So
that I'm
I
not
don't
calling it
mind
that.
when things. I don't mind when
It is
things get
still a
called a
theory,
conspiracy.
though. I'm just
Yeah,
using it
but it's a
in
conspiracy
objective.
theory.
I'm just using it objectively.
Exactly.
That being said, she did one on why we haven't gone back to the moon, and it talks about JFK.
I'd go in a nanosecond.
It talks about I know. She talks about JFK, and she talks about why JFK was likely killed, but she doesn't explicitly say it because I guess she wants to save her life. But when you listen to her big, it's like an hour long, and it's all about NASA. What's up?
Charlie India Alpha, perhaps? Is that what she's talking about?
No, not necessarily. So right before JFK got killed, JFK
Yeah.
wanted to cancel the moon, the whole moon thing. He wanted to cancel it in an effort to collaborate and foster peace with Russia. Within a few weeks of this announcement, of this thing that he wanted to do, that was actually never publicly, he didn't do a like national press thing, but this was documented. This is all documented. You can look up this stuff. And then he's killed. And so he actually did cancel the Apollo mission and everything. And what's his name? F. Ford. Was it Ford that took JFK's place? No. It was that weird racist guy. You guys remember?
Somebody in the chat will know quicker than I will.
Who's the dude that took JFK's place? Whatever the case, the dude, he was the one that gets portrayed as the crazy racist. But anyway, he started it back up right away, and he became the president. Johnson, that LBJ for sure. That was the one. So,
he was racist.
Yeah, yeah. But anyway, he's the one. He's the president that actually got us to the moon. Whether we went or not, it doesn't matter. It does it. It doesn't. I know that sounds weird, but the point is, there's a reason why. There's a reason why they must perpetuate. And I've thought about this. I've thought about why. Why is it necessary to the ruling class? I'm assuming. Why is it necessary for America to be in discord with, or in this constant tension with Russia? What is it about Russia that poses a threat? What is it about Russia and America joining in peace that poses a threat? Is it just strategic? So these are my ideas. Is it just merely the fact that Russia's really the only other similar massive force, and it's really just a pragmatic, useful. Um, they're just useful tools to go against each other. But if you go along that line of thinking, then why wouldn't you use China? And then what comes to mind with that is Russia. I mean, China's uh, equalness with America is actually relatively modern, specifically in regards to their financial strength, because for a long time China was struggling, but now they are massively stabilizing, which is scary because they have 4 times more people than we do. So for them to be stabilizing way more than we are, then yeah. Anyway, all right. Yeah. Good night, Preacher Bear. It's like 4 a.m. where Preacher
I was
Bear
gonna
is.
say it's got to be like 4 or 5 in the morning.
I've got my London clock right here. 4:16 a.m. Guys. Preacher Bear is either nocturnal or insomniac or just a boss.
We probably screwed up his tomorrow.
He did it willingly.
Yeah.
Oh, it's interesting, Bigby, with the Russia and Esau thing. I'm not. Huh. You know, in one of Bigby's videos, speaking of, Bigby has done a lot of research in the realm of where the different nations, where they disperse to and stuff. And all I can tell you is that I can trace some of my lineage back to Shem, and I can trace some of my lineage back to Japheth, but I can't trace any of my lineage so far to Ham. So I don't know what that tells you, but I guess that tells you that I'm pretty kosher. Come on, that I didn't deliver the timing just right on that, but I think
that
that was
wasn't perfect. What I do know is Nick Fuentes would absolutely hate you.
because of Shem and Japheth. Yeah, I know.
Because you're probably like 1024th Jew.
Are you kidding? I mean, I had to go back like 120 generations to
120 generations.
I'm not even
I
kidding.
don't even know how infinitesimal that percentage would be.
I don't really know. I really don't. If you divide, well, what would that be? 120 times 2? Is it? I don't know how that works. I don't even know.
Yeah.
That
Bigby can
means
figure
you
it
are
out.
of Israel. We all are, though, guys. I mean, come on.
Yep. We can't all trace it, but we're all there.
Yeah. We all go back
We're
to Noah.
all there, man.
We all go back to Noah. Every person on the planet, whether you're Chinese, African, you're an Incan, you're like one of those little pygmy guys, you're an Aborigine. It doesn't matter. We all go back to Noah. Chill out, y'all. We do. We all go back to Noah, 100%. Every person on the planet.
Bigby's gonna go off on you.
I know he is, but unless you try to support some type of Nephilim weirdness.
If I remember correctly, and Bigby can correct me if I'm wrong, Bigby is of the belief that there were other children of Adam and Eve.
That's all fine and dandy, but they all died in the flood. I believe in the flood because I really believe that Genesis is a literal book. I know you do, and I want to learn. I want to understand. Okay, let me put it this way: I want to learn and understand more about what you are thinking about in regards to those races. But I also wholeheartedly believe that the Tower of Babel wasn't just language; that it was also race. Yeah, that's a little convenient. I get it, but it is a logical conclusion.
But Bigby, your video is going to be on Minds, so nobody's going to see it.
And on that note, good night. but for real, I do need to go like ASAP.
Yeah, I need to go. My phone's at like 12%.
All right.
And my wife probably is wondering why I'm not home.
Love the Lord
But
your God
look-
with all your heart, mind, soul, and strength. And Jeremy,
And peace.
I'm putting your
I'm
face on the stream.
Oh, my bad.
Well, it's okay. Yeah, there you go.
Here I am. We're almost done. Big B, I love you. You're a fun man to pick on. I really enjoy your videos. Guys, thanks for hanging out with us. And we'll catch you next week.
Lord willing. Lord willing. Night.